The narrator has been engaged to someone since childhood. At school, several boys approach Inarizaka-san to ask if she wants to go to karaoke or watch a movie with them. Inarizaka thanks them but declines the offer because she already has other plans, leaving the students admiring her beauty. Inarizaka is a talented and beautiful girl from a respectable family in Kyoto. She approaches Sorata-san and apologizes for making him wait. Sorata considers himself an ordinary person. He tells Miyuki-san she did a good job that day, but turns down an invitation to go somewhere because he has homework to finish. Miyuki tells Sorata that she admires how diligent and responsible he is as they walk together. Miyuki smiles and teases Sorata, telling him that he is very good at flattery. Sorata reacts with visible shock to her comment. Years earlier, a young Sorata is told that a girl named Inarizaka Miyuki will be his fiancée from that moment on. The two children meet for the first time in front of their families, and young Miyuki politely introduces herself to Sorata. The engagement was arranged by their grandfathers, who had been best friends since their college days. After that initial meeting, the two stayed in contact, but only saw each other in person once a year during family gatherings. Sorata is stunned to discover that Miyuki enrolled in the same Tokyo high school as him, a fact he only learned at the entrance ceremony. Sorata asks how she is finding life in Tokyo and if she has adjusted yet. Miyuki explains that while she is slowly getting used to the large crowds, she still has trouble losing her Kyoto dialect. She remarks that it is only natural since almost no one in Tokyo speaks with that specific accent. Miyuki admits her dialect slips out whenever she loses her focus. She has a memory of a teacher being confused by a Kyoto term she used, requiring a clarification that she simply meant to tidy things up. She notes that Sorata understands her dialect very well despite having always lived in the Kanto region. When she expresses surprise that he knows specific vocabulary, he admits that he studied it specifically for her. Miyuki says she is happy to hear that. Sorata feels that this is a good opportunity for them to finally get to know one another better. Things become difficult when a passerby accidentally bumps into Miyuki. Sorata quickly asks if she is all right while the stranger offers an apology. Miyuki teases Sorata for how he reacted during the incident. He apologizes as well, explaining that he thought he had successfully moved out of the way, but the collision was strange. When Sorata asks if she has any injuries, Miyuki tells him no. Sorata reflects that the most challenging aspect of her character is the disconnect between her heart and her words. He struggles with the fact that her outward words rarely match her internal feelings. While she tells him everything is fine, she is actually feeling quite frustrated beneath the surface. The situation is complicated by her inconsistent behavior. Sorata recalls a time when she seemed genuinely happy to receive a gift from him, leaving him unsure whether she truly accepted the sentiment or not. Sorata realizes he still does not truly understand how she feels about him. As they prepare to part ways for the day, Miyuki suddenly calls out his name. Miyuki asks if he would be willing to take her on a sightseeing tour around Tokyo the following day. Sorata is struck by the sudden realization of what her request implies. Later that night, Sorata celebrates the fact that they are going on what is essentially a date. The next day, the pair arrives in Akihabara. Sorata asks if she is sure this is a good spot for sightseeing as they begin their walk through the district together. Miyuki explains that she is bored of typical tourist spots like temples and towers. She mentions there is a specific place she wants to see instead, leaving Sorata confused. They visit a maid cafe where the maid performs a heart-shaped chant. Miyuki joins in happily while Sorata participates with visible hesitation. Sorata finds the experience incredibly embarrassing, especially doing it in front of the person he likes. Miyuki decides she wants to take a commemorative photo. They take a group photo with the maid. Sorata finds it strange that her first choice for a Tokyo sightseeing spot was a maid cafe. Miyuki ponders whether maids in Tokyo serve a similar role to geisha in Kyoto, though she concludes they are distinct. Miyuki remarks that this is their first photo together. Sorata points out that they aren't alone in the picture because of the maid, and Miyuki agrees. Miyuki gets very close to Sorata and proposes that they take a photo with just the two of them next time. Sorata realizes she is teasing him because she knows how embarrassed he is. Miyuki watches his flustered reaction with a smirk. Sorata agrees to her suggestion. Miyuki notices him slipping into a dialect and comments that this kind of date feels like a fresh experience for her. Sorata looks at Miyuki with a soft smile as they continue their time together. While Sorata plays with his engagement ring, he recalls her calling him a flatterer. He concludes that regardless of her deeper feelings, she clearly does not hate him. He decides that simply taking her words at face value isn't enough because he wants to understand what she is really thinking. He calls out to Miyuki-san. Driven by a desire to learn her true feelings, Sorata asks her where she would like to go next. The pair stops at a row of gacha machines where several capsules are being dispensed. Miyuki becomes obsessed with a specific gacha item, calculating the odds after losing 40 times in a row. She refuses Sorata's suggestion to buy the item online, screaming that it is pointless if it does not come from the machine. Miyuki tells Sorata she will try another machine to reset her luck. Sorata decides he will also give it a try. Sorata looks at a 500 yen coin in his hand while worrying about his remaining budget for the month and his lunch money. Sorata decides to stop for the day and turns to speak to Miyuki, only to realize she has wandered off. Sorata hears a group of people nearby calling out to Anirecap-san. 3 boys surround Miyuki, asking if she is by herself and complimenting her looks. Sorata watches from the side, unsure of what is happening. The group asks Miyuki about the large amount of capsules she is carrying. Sorata wonders if these people are her friends as she responds with annoyance. One of the boys asks Miyuki if it is true that she has a fiancé at their school. Sorata is shocked by the question. The boy comments that it must be a lie because only the man is wearing a ring on his finger. Miyuki stands silently with her own hand bare. The group calls the situation pitiful and suggests that Miyuki should date a wealthy student aiming to be a doctor instead. Sorata listens in silence. Sorata looks at his own hand and realizes that he has been the only one wearing his engagement ring. Sorata recalls several moments from their past where Miyuki seemingly ignored the engagement while he stayed committed to it. The boys tell Miyuki that standing around is a waste of time and invite her to a cafe. Miyuki attempts to politely refuse the offer. One of the boys ignores her refusal and tries to lead her away by force. Miyuki is caught off guard and Sorata reacts immediately. Sorata reaches out and firmly grabs the boy's arm to stop him from taking Miyuki. Sorata stares the boy down and tells him to please stop. Sorata is easily shoved to the ground by the boys who mock his weakness. They ignore him and try to drag Miyuki away while she looks back in concern. Lying on the pavement, Sorata is reminded of the boy's cruel words about how pitiful it is that he is the only one wearing an engagement ring. As Sorata wonders why the situation hurts so much, Miyuki suddenly grabs the leader's arm and twists it, sending him into a state of pain. Miyuki looks down with a mocking smile, asking the boy if he has been eating well, because he feels incredibly light to her. The other boys watch the sudden display of martial strength in absolute shock. The boys quickly run away in fear as Miyuki waves them off, telling them they should have spoken up sooner if they wanted to leave, while a caption reveals she has 10 years of experience in Aikido and Kendo. Sorata sits on the ground and laughs nervously to himself, realizing how incredibly strong Miyuki actually is. He feels highly embarrassed for attempting to protect someone who clearly did not need his help, while Miyuki looks away in embarrassment too. Miyuki turns back to Sorata, bending down to offer him her hand and asking if he is hurt. Sorata stares up at her open hand, deep in his own thoughts. He hesitates for a brief moment as he looks up at her face. Although Sorata tells her that he is fine, his heart begins to beat rapidly. Instead of taking her hand normally to stand up, Sorata firmly grasps it and calls her name, catching Miyuki by surprise. While kneeling on the ground and holding her hand, Sorata directly confesses that he likes her. Miyuki is left completely stunned and flustered by his sudden declaration, utterly unable to process what just happened. Sorata feels that he cannot stop speaking now. He believes that he will deeply regret it if he does not say everything right now. He confesses that he truly loves everything about her, including her occasional Kyoto dialect, when she is upset, her kindness, her strong personality, and her enthusiasm. Sorata admits that she is so incredible that he sometimes feels entirely unworthy of liking her. He points out his own flaws, explaining that his grades are average, he has no money, and even his dyed hair does not make him cool, leaving him with nothing to be proud of. Sorata holds her hands tightly and declares his desire to make her the happiest person in the world, while Miyuki suddenly notices that she has drawn the secret item from her capsule. He passionately raises his voice, declaring that he will not lose to anyone when it comes to wanting her happiness. Sorata promises to work as hard as possible to gain her acknowledgement so he can remain by her side while Miyuki listens to his speech in silence. Miyuki blushes, slightly clutches her chest, and quietly thanks him for his confession. Sorata stares at her in quiet confusion, attempting to process what her simple thank you actually means. He stands there holding her hand, completely stunned and wondering if she has just rejected him. From his own perspective, Sorata is fully convinced that he has been rejected in a completely standard manner. The two of them awkwardly say their goodbyes as they part ways in the evening. Later that night at home, Sorata dries his hair with a hairdryer while thinking about how obvious the outcome was. He tells himself that there is no way she would like him after such an embarrassing display of weakness, though he still holds onto a tiny sliver of hope. Miyuki smiles warmly to herself as she walks through the crowd, wondering where she and Sorata should go on their next date, and feeling glad that she moved to Tokyo. Meanwhile, Sorata tries to convince himself that Miyuki does not hate him, desperately wanting to believe it. Back at her home, Miyuki looks down quietly while holding a small object. She looks at her engagement ring on her necklace and worries that Sorata might have completely misunderstood why she is not wearing it on her finger. She starts to sweat and panic as she thinks about the situation more deeply. She collapses onto her bed in panic, explaining to herself that she only stopped wearing the ring on her finger because it no longer fits, but she kept quiet because she did not want to be thought of as fat, and now she fears Sorata will get fed up with her. While Sorata brushes his teeth and worries about not being able to talk to her the next day, Miyuki holds her ring necklace tightly, with both of them caught in a web of misunderstandings, despite their mutual feelings. The narrator recaps being engaged since childhood and how Sorata ended up believing he was rejected during their date. The next day at school, Miyuki approaches Sorata with a warm smile and asks if he would like to start having study sessions together starting the following day. Sorata reacts with visible depression and gloom, prompting Miyuki to quickly say it is fine if he is busy, but he frantically explains that is not the case while worrying that she will not enjoy it. Both of them stare at each other in utter confusion, completely failing to understand each other's reactions. Sorata asks her what she meant by telling him not to bother her during their last conversation, leaving Miyuki completely shocked as she realizes he completely misconstrued her Kyoto dialect. Too embarrassed to explain the mix-up, Miyuki crosses her arms and tells him to figure it out himself. Sorata lets out a small exclamation of understanding while Miyuki looks away in embarrassment. The two of them agree to end their conversation there. Back at home, Sorata lies on his couch in a state of deep depression, regretting that he asked her so directly and concluding that she must truly hate him. While watching television, Sorata sees a character shout a passionate love confession, which catches his attention. The character on screen admits to having nothing but loving everything about his partner, making Sorata feel a strong sense of relation to him. However, the woman on screen dismisses the confession as a nuisance, instantly crushing Sorata's mood as he realizes how similar his own fate might be. Feeling his emotional scars deepen, Sorata buries his face in the couch, while the television show continues with the rejection, stating it is not possible with someone as they are now. The television character tells the man to ask her out again once he becomes a man worthy of her, sparking a sudden realization in Sorata's mind. Determined to get to know her better so he can become a man worthy of her, Sorata runs up to Miyuki at school with high energy to start their study session. When Sorata asks where she would like to study, Miyuki nervously fidgets and asks him if she is allowed to push the restaurant's call button. After Sorata tells her, of course, Miyuki slowly reaches out and presses the button, prompting Sorata to ask if this is her first time inside a family restaurant. Miyuki admits with some embarrassment that she rarely eats out because she does not have any friends to go out with, leaving Sorata in a panic over having stepped on a sensitive topic. The waiter arrives to take their order, and Sorata requests 2 drink bars while Miyuki hesitates when asked if they would like anything else to eat. Miyuki whispers to Sorata to ask if it is true that customers can order a smile, and Sorata quietly tells her that is likely not an option at this particular restaurant. Sorata offers to watch their bags so she can go to the drink bar first, prompting Miyuki to happily head over and choose hot tea, though she soon finds herself slightly confused by the machine. Miyuki carefully examines her tea, wondering if the water is hot enough, leaving Sorata astounded by how incredibly thorough she is. When Sorata notes that he has never seen someone brew tea so carefully, Miyuki slides the cup over to him, explaining that the tea is actually for him, while she has opted for carbonated water, leaving her confident it will taste delicious. Sorata happily thanks her and gets ready to take a sip while Miyuki watches him with a bashful expression. As Sorata holds the cup to his lips, he suddenly stops and remembers a well-known cultural custom. Sorata panics upon recalling that in Kyoto, serving tea to a guest is a polite, unspoken signal that you want them to go home. He anxiously asks Miyuki about her plans for the rest of the day, calming down only when she mentions that her lessons do not start until later that night. He reassures himself that the real signal to leave only occurs when a second cup of tea is offered rather than the first. When Sorata nervously tells her not to hesitate to speak up if she wants to go home, Miyuki reacts with irritation, questioning why she would say such a thing, and leaving him frustrated about having to read her true intentions. Miyuki firmly shifts the focus back to their study session and abruptly slides over to sit right beside him on the bench. When a flustered Sorata asks why she chose to sit right next to him, Miyuki cheekily asks if it is inconvenient for him, which he quickly denies. Sorata points out that she must feel cramped sitting so close, but Miyuki simply smiles and replies that the booth is just a small space. Sorata tries to regain control of the situation by claiming he is old enough not to feel shy even if she sticks close to him, but Miyuki leans in directly and asks what he means by that. Looking down at her materials, Sorata notices that she is reading an English text and asks if it is a foreign book, to which Miyuki confirms it is for a book review assignment. Sorata feels highly self-conscious about how advanced her studies are compared to his, but Miyuki captures his attention by revealing that her book is actually the original source material for a Western movie he once recommended to her. Excited by her revelation, Sorata eagerly asks if she actually watched the movie, and Miyuki proudly confirms that she did. Miyuki smugly lists all the sequel's drama adaptations and author documentaries she watched on the subject, leaving Sorata amazed to realize she has become far more invested in the series than he ever was. Sorata apologizes and admits that he has not gone that far yet, because he has not even seen the sequel, prompting Miyuki to state they are all interesting and recommend that he watch them. Sorata thinks for a moment before pulling out his phone and typing something, leaving Miyuki curious about what he is doing. Sorata shows Miyuki his phone screen to reveal he has just purchased the exact same book, proposing that they hold another review session together next time after he finishes reading it and watches the sequel. Miyuki giggles and hides her face, telling a startled Sorata that his eager reaction feels fresh to her. Miyuki reminds Sorata that she has no friends, and as she clenches her hand, she begins to explain the situation to him. She explains that during elementary and middle school, everyone constantly flattered her and kept her at the center of attention. Her classmates would always praise her for achievements like getting first place in her class. Although they praised her for winning tournaments, they eventually alienated her by assuming she was too busy to be invited to social gatherings. As a result, Miyuki spent much of her school life feeling isolated and lonely. Miyuki smiles softly at Sorata, telling him that he has always been truly different from everyone else. Sorata is taken aback and suddenly remembers visiting her sparse, simple room shortly after their engagement was arranged. He recalls seeing a box filled with countless trophies and awards stored carelessly on the floor. Realizing that she could do almost anything better than others, Sorata ponders her perfectionism and wonders what she truly desires from life. Flustered by her compliment, Sorata admits he never expected her to think of him in such a positive light, but quickly clarifies that it makes him very happy. Miyuki giggles softly and picks up her glass, remarking that she has become quite thirsty after talking for so long. Suddenly, Sorata is asked if he would like another cup of tea, sending him right back into a state of panic. They leave the restaurant after paying, heading out of the automatic doors as the shop's bell chimes. Sorata quickly bids her farewell and walks away, leaving Miyuki standing there alone as she watches his back. Miyuki is left staring in utter confusion, wondering why he left so abruptly. She questions why they ended their meeting so early, wondering if she was acting rude. Back in his room, Sorata collapses onto his table in relief, thinking that the situation was close but ultimately went smoothly. He reflects on how he got to discover a completely new side of Miyuki during their time together. Wiggling happily on his bed, Sorata feels that the distance between them has finally shortened, even if just by a small amount. Although he looks at their books and acknowledges that the difference in their abilities is still vast, he remembers her kind words and decides to keep pushing forward. Overjoyed by her compliment, he kicks his legs in excitement on his bed. Hugging his pillow tightly, he vows to do his absolute best from now on. The next morning at school, Sorata walks in yawning because he stayed up late binging the sequels to her favorite movie only to suddenly feel a tap on his shoulder. He turns around in surprise to see who is behind him. A strange girl with braided hair asks him if he knows where Miyuki's classroom is located. Sorata agrees to guide the girl to Miyuki's classroom because she asked him, but he feels nervous as she peeks closely at him. Sorata tries to ask the girl what her business is with Miyuki, but she dismisses his question and demands that he hurry up, leaving him wondering what she actually wants from his fiancé. Knowing it is best to resolve the matter quickly, Sorata calls out to Miyuki as she walks by causing her to stop in surprise. Miyuki smiles and welcomes them, noting that Sorata has brought a lovely companion, but inside she is burning with silent jealousy as the school bell rings. The girl loudly introduces herself to Miyuki as Mary Hitsujino in a very exaggerated fake Kyoto dialect, shocking both Sorata and Miyuki. Mary proudly explains that she studied the dialect online because she loved it, prompting Miyuki to politely comment that her Kansai dialect is actually very good. While Mary celebrates the praise, Sorata silently panics that Miyuki is actually furious. Mary then reveals to Sorata that this is not their first time meeting and asks if he remembers her. Mary shows them the commemorative photo they took at the maid cafe, revealing she was the maid who served them, which leaves Sorata screaming in absolute shock. Mary questions whether taking a girl to a maid cafe is a good idea for a date, while Sorata defensively asks if that is why she is being so hard on him. As Sorata slips up and uses a rougher masculine pronoun for himself, Miyuki lets out a sharp gasp, making him turn to her in absolute terror. Miyuki smiles menacingly and comments that they seem to be getting along incredibly well, confirming Sorata's worst fears that she is furious. Sorata tries to deny it while Mary bluntly comments on Miyuki's cold blank eyes before changing the subject to explain that her mother is Japanese and her father is Canadian. Mary explains that she moved to Japan in junior high school because she loves Japanese culture, before pointing dramatically at Miyuki and declaring her a perfect example of traditional Japanese womanhood. Mary dramatically declares Miyuki to be the ideal role model she has been looking for, while Sorata anxiously points out that their first class is about to start. Mary grabs Miyuki's hands and begs her to teach her how to be a refined Kyoto woman. Miyuki tentatively agrees to the request. Slumped at his desk, Sorata slumps over in despair, thinking that a real weirdo has suddenly entered their lives. He wonders why Miyuki was so cold and angry towards him during their study session. A classmate hands him a paper, and Sorata thanks him while desperately wanting to keep his progress with Miyuki from going to waste. He remembers her saying that he was truly different from the rest, recalling how much those words had made him happy. But he also thinks back to her expression during that moment. The boy next to him stares, prompting a startled Sorata to ask if there is a problem, which the boy quickly dismisses. The boy smiles and says it is good to hear, leaving Sorata touched by how nice his classmate is. Distracted by this casual kindness, Sorata is snapped out of his daze when the teacher calls on him to read. Later, during lunch, Sorata stands silently holding a bowl on a tray. He sees Miyuki and Mary walking together, chatting happily. Mary compliments Miyuki's bento, and Miyuki explains that she prepared it with her aunt. Mary begs for a bite, and when Miyuki feeds it to her, she excitedly praises the fried chicken while Sorata watches from afar. While Mary continues to enjoy the food, Sorata stares in shock, thinking how unfair it is that someone who just met Miyuki is already getting closer to her than he is. Mary notices Sorata nearby and loudly calls out to him, surprising him. Miyuki suddenly holds out her spoon, offering Sorata a bite of her food. Sorata is shocked by Miyuki's sudden offer, realizing she is still quietly testing him. Sorata leans forward and eagerly chomps down on the offered bite, leaving Miyuki completely shocked by his boldness. As he chews happily, Sorata praises Miyuki's cooking for being incredibly delicious, while Miyuki looks back at him in stunned silence. Miyuki rests her face on her hand and calls him too much, leaving both Sorata and Mary in a state of shock. While Mary eagerly admires Miyuki's authentic Kyoto dialect and concludes the two must be fiancés, Sorata panics, thinking Miyuki meant that she cannot stand him and that her words are another trap. Mary comments that she still does not think Sorata is a good fit for Miyuki, suggesting their engagement must be a hoax and that she thought they were just childhood friends instead. Mary asks why Miyuki chose to enroll in this specific school since she was at the top of her class and could have aimed much higher, making Miyuki hesitate and grit her teeth. Miyuki explains that she is at the school on an order from her grandmother, so she can spend more time together with her fiancé, prompting a surprised reaction from Sorata and an excited exclamation from Mary. Mary teases Miyuki about her tough luck, which causes Miyuki to angrily tell her to mind her own business. After staring at Sorata, Mary concludes that the engagement is just Sorata's unrequited love and bids him good luck on his long life path, prompting Sorata to ask what perspective she is even speaking from. Mary suddenly stands up and prepares to leave. As Mary walks away, Sorata and Miyuki reflect on how they still have no idea what she wanted, but Mary suddenly halts and turns around, startling Sorata. Mary runs back and announces that she almost forgot something important, immediately beginning to rummage through Miyuki's belongings for her smartphone. Mary takes Miyuki's hands and declares that she added her contact info on the messaging app, asking Miyuki to send her a stamp later. She sincerely tells Miyuki that she wants to be her friend before waving goodbye and running off. As Miyuki quietly mutters the word friend under her breath, Sorata looks at her profile and notices she looks slightly sad. Sorata remembers her previous explanation of how everyone had always flattered her, making her the center of attention and eventually isolating her. He reflects on what a wonderful person she is and feels disappointed that people always distance themselves from her before truly understanding her charm. Miyuki happily clutches her phone to her chest, giggling and confessing that it is the first time she has ever exchanged phone numbers with a friend. Sorata smiles softly as he watches her joy, thinking that those who avoided her are truly missing out on something great. Miyuki suddenly panics about which sticker stamp she should send first, so Sorata leans in to help her pick a good one. Looking at her phone screen, Miyuki sees only a few contacts listed, including Sorata, Mary, and her aunt, prompting her to admit she has been feeling a little lonely. The narrator notes that Miyuki has successfully made a new friend and that seeing her smile is extremely wholesome, but things are about to change. As Miyuki and Mary chat enthusiastically, Sorata walks behind them, feeling completely left out of the conversation. Sorata notices that Miyuki's voice is higher pitched than usual as she talks with her new friend. Mary offers Miyuki a local Kyoto treat called Yatsuhashi, but Miyuki politely declines despite Mary assuring her it is delicious. Mary bluntly tells Sorata she will not any of the snack with him anyway, prompting Miyuki to address her formally as Hitsujino-san. Mary quickly cuts her off, begging Miyuki to call her Mary-chan instead since they are friends. Blushing deeply, Miyuki manages to call her Mary-chan and nervously adds that Mary can call her Miyuki-chan too, which sends Mary into a state of pure excitement. Mary grabs Sorata and tells him that they are equal now, warning him not to act coy just because he is engaged, or he will suffer later, prompting Miyuki to demand to know what she means. As Sorata and Miyuki listen in shock, Mary explains that relationships are like watering a flower, warning them that if they do not show their love, someone else might take their fiancé away. Both Miyuki and Sorata freeze up in panic. Mary aggressively nudges Sorata to say something romantic, and a sweating Sorata struggles to find the words. Under pressure, Sorata tells Miyuki that her hairstyle today is cute as well, making Miyuki look at him with wide, shocked eyes. Mary points out that Miyuki's braids are the same style as hers, and Sorata awkwardly agrees while Miyuki looks away, flustered and clutching her chest. Miyuki remarks with a sarcastic smirk that Sorata is really good at giving compliments, making Sorata feel like she gets offended no matter what he does. Meanwhile, Mary happily awards Miyuki 20 points for using proper Kyoto dialect, though Miyuki says she does not want her marks. While Sorata worries that his efforts to show love are not enough, his classmate Kishi arrives at the lockers and greets both him and Miyuki with a warm smile. Miyuki politely greets him by his name, Kishi, and Sorata cheerily bids him good morning, realizing Kishi is the classmate sitting directly in front of him. As Kishi thanks her, Sorata noticed Miyuki is gripping his backpack extremely tightly and asks her why she is pressing down on his bag. Kishi waves goodbye, saying he will see them in the classroom, which Sorata cheerily acknowledges while Kishi leaves with a subtle smirk. As soon as Kishi leaves, Miyuki and Mary both let out a low hiss warning Sorata that Kishi is incredibly scary, which leaves him utterly confused. Sorata asks Miyuki if something is wrong since she seems a little strange today, but she nervously denies it, raising his suspicion. Staring closely at her, Sorata is fully convinced that she is indeed acting differently from her usual self. Determined to find out what is going on, Sorata suddenly grabs both of her hands, startling Miyuki completely. Sorata looks her straight in the eyes and calls out her name. Sorata diagnoses Miyuki with a fever after they go to the school nurse's office. Mary bursts into loud, dramatic tears and frantically apologizes to Miyuki. Mary wails that she unintentionally overworked Miyuki and begs her not to die, while the school nurse reassures everyone that it is simply a cold. Sorata gently asks Miyuki if she is doing okay, and she softly smiles as she confirms it is only a slight fever. Miyuki mentions that her aunt is already on her way to pick her up, prompting Sorata to look down and apologize for not noticing her illness much sooner. The school bell rings for the next period, forcing Mary to bid her farewell and promise to message her later, while the school nurse instructs Sorata and Mary to head back to class before leaving the room. As Sorata prepares to leave the room as well, Miyuki suddenly reaches out and grabs his sleeve to stop him from going. She pulls him close, leaning her head against him as she quietly asks him how he managed to realize she was sick. When Sorata tries to protest, Miyuki grabs him and pulls him down toward her on the bed. She tightly holds onto his arm, noting that normally no one else would ever notice when she is unwell. Miyuki explains that neither her family nor those around her ever noticed when she caught a cold, leaving Sorata as the only person who always did. Sorata asks if she hid her symptoms so she wouldn't make people worry, but Miyuki tells him that is not quite the reason. She admits that she simply detests attracting attention in that manner, making Sorata realize how much she dislikes being the center of fuss over her vulnerabilities. Miyuki covers her face with the blanket, muttering that her cold must be making her weak since she is rambling about her true feelings, and apologizes for bothering him with trivial things. Sorata smiles and assures her there is absolutely nothing wrong with pretending to be fine when she is unwell, though he immediately becomes self-conscious about his words. Sorata continues telling Miyuki that if that is truly how she is, then it is perfectly okay for her to stay that way, but he offers a condition. He promises to pay much closer attention to her from now on so that he can notice the next time she is feeling unwell, leaving Miyuki completely speechless. He hurriedly panics and adds that she must still rely on others when things are truly serious, causing Miyuki to let out a smug chuckle. Smiling warmly from under the covers, Miyuki softly tells him that she understands. When the school bell rings, Sorata realizes he needs to go but suddenly stops to ask her if he can perform a quick healing spell on her. Intrigued, Miyuki agrees and invites him to go ahead, so he steps closer to her bed. Leaning over her bed behind the curtains, Sorata gently places his forehead against hers to cast his healing spell. Sorata then bids her farewell and promises to contact her after school, before sliding the door shut, leaving Miyuki staring blankly in sheer bewilderment. Remembering how he leaned down, pressed his forehead to hers, and wished her a quick recovery, Miyuki covers her burning face in overwhelming surprise. Miyuki thrashes around in her bed in absolute embarrassment, mortified that she had briefly expected something indecent, and her fever worsens shortly after. The next day, Sorata spots Miyuki on her way to school and calls out to ask how she is feeling and if she managed to get a good rest. She remains completely silent, and as she glares at him with a tense expression, Sorata's forehead touch from the day before flashes back into her mind. Miyuki covers her face and screams that he is shameless before running away, leaving a confused Sorata behind as Mary slides in and comments that the interaction was awful. Miyuki stares intensely at the baking tray, determined to make her feelings reach him through her cooking. Sorata stands in the home economics classroom looking deeply depressed and anxious. Sorata worries that Miyuki is completely avoiding him in their D-elective class, recalling how she turned and walked away when he tried to talk to her earlier. Kishi approaches Sorata, calling him out for being so distracted that he is messing up the recipe, and asks what is wrong. Sorata looks down at his cooking instructions, admitting to himself that the person he likes is completely avoiding him and will not even look in his direction. Kishi looks at him with a surprised expression upon hearing this. Kishi bluntly tells him that she must really hate his guts, which makes Sorata panic even more. Sorata explains that he might have done something wrong without realizing it and wants to apologize, but has no idea what to say, prompting Kishi to ponder the situation before speaking up. Kishi suggests that giving her a gift might work while Miyuki continues working nearby. Kishi reassures Sorata that everything will be fine while Miyuki looks over at them with a tense expression. Mary approaches Miyuki at her cooking station and proudly tells her to leave the marriage counseling to her, which Miyuki hesitantly agrees to. When Miyuki tries to object, Mary asks if they simply had a fight, explaining that, while she cannot force them to make up, this is a common situation that young couples easily fall into. Mary raises her finger and boldly declares that in this case, the solution is probably a bribe. Mary explains that bribery is quite amazing since it can get someone placed in the same class as their crush, or even improve their grades, though Miyuki realizes Mary is thinking of a highly criminal type of bribe. Mary enthusiastically explains that a classic bribe from historical dramas involving gold coins hidden under food is a perfect solution that can solve everything, and her passionate speech strangely begins to persuade the classmates listening nearby. Sorata stands in the home economics room holding a bag of baked goods, happily declaring that he succeeded in making them. As Sorata calls out to Miyuki, he notices that she and Mary are already leaving the room to go out for lunch. Mary comments on how delicious the matcha-flavored sweets are, and Miyuki giggles before suggesting they stop using fake Kyoto dialects. When Mary asks why she used so little sugar in her baking, Miyuki begins to explain herself as Sorata watches from a distance. Miyuki explains that she is not actually good with sweet things, holding a box in her hands. Sorata reacts with pure shock to her statement. A depressed Sorata slumps over and tries to give his cookies to Kishi, who politely declines, because he has already received a large pile of gifts from other girls. Sorata notices Kishi is sorting through documents and asks if he needs any help, which Kishi gratefully accepts, explaining that he is organizing materials for their upcoming weekend field trip. Kishi explains that the student council put him and Miyuki in charge of all the field trip preparations. He adds that Miyuki incredibly finished almost all the work in a single day, leaving him with very little left to do. Sorata urges Kishi to take his cookies anyway, since they are filled with his feelings, even though he could not hand them to Miyuki, which makes Kishi thoughtful. Kishi smiles and muses whether feelings actually have anything to do with how something tastes. Sitting alone, Sorata sighs over the fact that he was unable to give his cookies to anyone and wonders if he should just bring them home to his mother. Reflecting on how little he still understands her true feelings after learning she dislikes sweets, Sorata checks his phone and receives a message from Miyuki asking him to meet at the park near the station instead of heading straight home. Sorata runs quickly toward the park to meet her. Sorata sits on a bench in the park and Miyuki waits nearby. Miyuki apologizes for making him wait and Sorata begins to respond. Sorata admits aloud that the situation is awkward and Miyuki turns her head away in embarrassment. Sorata tells Miyuki to go first, but she insists that he should be the one to speak. Sorata apologizes to Miyuki, explaining that he has been thinking about the spell he cast on her earlier. He admits he acted out of habit like they were still kids and worries that she must have disliked his behavior. Miyuki shouts at Sorata that he has misunderstood the situation entirely. Sorata panics and insists that he only meant to apologize because he could not bear to look at her face up close due to his own personal reasons. Miyuki tells him not to ask about those reasons. Miyuki thanks Sorata for what happened that day and says she was happy. She apologizes for the misunderstanding she caused, noting how considerate he has always been toward her. Sorata dismisses her gratitude, claiming it was nothing. Miyuki asks him a question as she holds a small item in her hand. Miyuki reaches out to touch Sorata while he inwardly reflects that if he cannot even touch her with one finger, he would rather get used to being close to her little by little. Miyuki teases Sorata by touching his face, and he calls her mean before she smiles at him. Sorata says he did not realize she disliked sweet things. Miyuki thanks him for the cookies, but when Sorata clarifies that he actually loves sweets, she is confused and asks if she was wrong about his preferences. Sorata looks at Miyuki with a surprised expression as they a moment of silence. Miyuki explains in detail how she carefully selected the matcha and adjusted the recipe to balance the flavor, noting that she even added almond powder for crunchiness. Miyuki smiles and tells Sorata that she made the cookies with all of her feelings. Sorata wonders if feelings really have anything to do with the taste of the cookies. Sorata falls silent as he considers Miyuki's explanation. Sorata eats a piece of her baking and declares that it is absolutely delicious. Miyuki blushes and thanks Sorata for his kind words. Sorata smiles and reveals that he also made cookies for her with all his feelings, pulling a box out to them. Sorata reaches into his box to offer Miyuki one of his own cookies. Miyuki notices something else hidden inside the box and picks it up, wondering what it is. Miyuki proudly jokes that the item is her own form of feeling bribery. Sorata is stunned, asking why it looks like an antique gold coin. Sorata stares at the coin in his hands, thinking that he still cannot grasp Miyuki's true intentions. The school field trip to Mount Washio begins with students gathered as Kishi and Miyuki stand together at the front. Kishi and Miyuki stand together, and Kishi checks to see if everyone is present. The students stand on a muddy path, and one of them warns everyone to be careful while walking. Sorata listens as other students comment on how popular and attractive Kishi and Miyuki look standing together. Sorata is shocked to hear rumors circulating that Kishi is actually Miyuki's fiancé. Other students gossip excitedly about the rumor, comparing the pairing to a dramatic scene from a TV show. The other students are shocked and exclaim that they cannot ignore the rumor about Kishi being Miyuki's fiancé. Sorata is stunned by their reaction to Hitsugino-san. Mary suddenly grabs Sorata and shouts that she is actually Mai-cha's fiancé, leaving Sorata completely confused. Sorata thinks to himself that no one would believe him even if he spoke up. Meanwhile, his classmates continue to gossip about how amazing it would be to have a relationship like that, noting that Miyuki had previously been ignored. Kishi tells everyone to please be careful as they continue walking along the path. Mary tries to hand an onigiri to Miyuki, but Miyuki politely declines. Sorata watches them and realizes he is walking at a constant distance from the rest of the group. The group continues to walk together along the mountain path while Sorata keeps his distance behind them. Kishi remarks on how amazing the sunlight filtering through the trees looks. Other students comment on how stunning Miyuki looks even while climbing a mountain, and Sorata notes that a line is starting to form behind them. Sorata thinks that he would feel completely out of place if it were not for Hitsugino-san being there. The group consists of the son of an actor, a young lady from Kyoto, and ordinary people like himself. Kishi walks ahead and remarks that things are not exactly amazing. Kishi tells the group that while everyone is amazed by their appearances, they do not even know their names, and he worries that they might feel uncomfortable. He asks Miyuki if she is annoyed by the situation, and Miyuki looks at him with a composed expression. Miyuki smiles and says she does not mind. Miyuki tells Kishi that as long as Sorata-san understands, that is enough for her. Mary coughs and the other students react with disgust at the sound. Kishi looks at Miyuki and comments that is why she is not wearing the ring, and then looks at her with a smile. Miyuki asks Kishi if his full name is Kishi Takeyami, noting that the name sounds familiar. Kishi confirms his name and asks why she is asking. Kishi recalls that a child actor with the same name appeared in a drama that aired 4 years ago. Miyuki playfully notes that she sees a resemblance in their faces, causing Kishi to react in surprise. The others are shocked to learn that Kishi used to be a child actor, and they ask him if he is serious. Kishi confirms he quit acting a long time ago and complains that it is unimportant, but Miyuki teases him, mentioning that she looked him up online and found many results. She remarks that he cannot let things go without paying people back 100-fold. Miyuki apologizes if she made him feel uncomfortable, while the others agree to move on as they approach the summit. Sorata notes how fast the climb felt since they took the cable car at the start, and someone suggests they wait for the teacher to catch up. The group points out Mount Fuji in the distance, and Sorata marvels that they can actually see it. Sorata and Miyuki a brief quiet look. Miyuki tells Sorata to move to the right towards a spot where people cannot see them so they can take a photo pretending to eat Mount Fuji. Sorata asks which one she means, and Miyuki asks if he still remembers the promise they made. Miyuki suggests they take a photo of just the two of them. Sorata asks how to use the front camera, and Miyuki tells him where to press. Miyuki takes the picture while Sorata holds the camera. They look at the resulting photo on the phone screen. Sorata laughs because the photo is blurry, but he adds that it has its own appeal. Miyuki suggests he turn on the image stabilization and proposes they take another one together. Sorata laughs and asks to get a little closer to Miyuki, promising he will send her the previous photo later. Miyuki looks at Sorata with a fixed, intense gaze. Miyuki asks Sorata why he is so interested in why she chose to move to Tokyo. A man asks Miyuki why she did not just attend a high school in Kyoto to avoid the trouble of living with her aunt, mentioning that her father is worried about her. Miyuki looks down, struggling to explain that she has never done anything normal. Miyuki tells him she has never done the things that normal couples do. A camera shutter clicks as a photo is taken. Miyuki stares back at the camera with wide, surprised eyes. Miyuki gasps while Sorata looks on with a soft smile. The screen of a smartphone displays a blank gray image. Sorata and Miyuki appear together in a photo on the phone screen. Miyuki sighs that the photo is still blurry while Sorata asks how it turned out. Miyuki feels embarrassed by her own expression in the picture and walks away, suggesting they try again later. Kishi notices the teachers arriving nearby. Kishi asks Sorata why he likes Inarizaka-san. Sorata is taken aback while Kishi observes that the person Sorata likes seems to be avoiding him. A student asks how the relationship started, but Kishi replies that there are too many reasons to explain. Kishi smiles and claims it was love at first sight, while others wonder if there is a special story behind it. Kishi explains that Miyuki has been cute since she was little, so his heart skipped a beat when he met her in person. Sorata sits with his head down, thinking that Kishi is just like any other guy. Kishi tells Sorata that even though they have not interacted much, he considers him a genuinely kind person who is honest about his feelings. Kishi looks directly at Sorata and asks if it would be better for both of their sakes if he called off his engagement with Inarizaka-san. Kishi reiterates his question, asking if it would be better for Sorata to call off the engagement. Sorata looks up at him with a startled and distressed expression. Kishi explains that although he is reluctant to defend Inarizaka-san, seeing someone else in the same situation forces him to intervene, because he does not know the reason behind the promise Sorata made. Kishi suggests that since Sorata is the only one wearing the ring, it implies their relationship is not going well. Kishi warns Sorata that continuing this way will only result in them hurting each other. Kishi begins to tell Sorata what would happen if he were still a public figure. Kishi says that if he were not an actor or a model anymore, he would not want anything to do with her. Kishi tells Sorata that is all he has to say, then urges him to think carefully about his advice as he walks away. Sorata is left feeling overwhelmed by Kishi before he can even offer a response. Sorata thinks about how many things he likes about Miyuki while recalling Kishi mentioning that people are only amazed by their appearances without knowing their names. Miyuki reminds everyone to be careful because the slope is steep, and she holds her hands together contemplating why she actually likes Sorata. Miyuki, Sorata, and Kishi stand together in an awkward silence as another girl asks what the atmosphere is. The girl shouts, asking where the mood from earlier went, and Sorata glances nervously at Kishi. The girl wonders if the group is experiencing a situation where fun turns to terror on the way back, while Sorata wonders if he should just descend the mountain with someone else since he has no friends. The girl notices that Kishi is missing his earring and asks him where it went. Kishi casually dismisses the need to find it, but the others offer to look for it, claiming they have eagle eyes. Kishi says it is unfortunate but cannot be helped, while Sorata agrees that losing something in a place like that happens. Kishi looks down with a pained expression. Sorata stares wide-eyed in realization. Sorata prepares to take action. Sorata suddenly yells for the others to go ahead without him, causing the girl to shout his name in surprise as he turns to leave. Sorata rushes back, recalling that Kishi was still wearing his large stick-shaped earring at the summit and reasoning that they should be able to find it on the one-way path. Miyuki watches as Sorata runs off, wondering how far he has gone, while the others remark that they will never find it no matter how hard they search. Sorata closes his eyes, processing the moment. Kishi notes that people only focus on appearances, then asks Sorata what he is actually seeing, adding that it is not about whether they find the earring or not. Miyuki thinks to herself that Sorata will keep searching until he finds the earring. Kishi looks at Sorata and mentions that it was because he made that kind of face. They continue to look for the missing earring in the grass. Mary exclaims that they went all the way back to the summit to search. Miyuki observes Kishi and thinks to herself about what he is talking about, remarking that the tree branches are starting to look like his earring. The others scream in alarm when they find Sorata collapsed face down on the ground. Sorata stands up and thanks them for pulling him up, declaring that he is safe. Sorata explains that he found the earring stuck in a tree down the cliff, which is how he ended up in that position. Kishi looks down with a somber expression saying he is glad Sorata found it, but wonders why he did it. Kishi yells at Sorata telling him that what he did was dangerous and reminding him that he had already told him not to do it. Sorata admits he knows he was meddling too much, but he explains his reasoning to Kishi. Kishi listens silently as Sorata continues. Sorata tells Kishi that for the first time he felt like he truly saw Kishi's real feelings. Sorata tells Kishi that he started thinking Miyuki's feelings were important after that, though he cannot list all the reasons. Kishi is confused by this vague explanation, but Sorata remains deeply focused on his thoughts. Kishi realizes he was the one pretending to be unaffected while Sorata looks at him with wide, understanding eyes. Kishi apologizes and thanks Sorata for finding the earring, but warns him not to be so reckless with his own safety. Miyuki approaches the two of them and tells them to take the offered item. Sorata and Kishi sit in silence inside the cable car as they head back down. Sorata notices Kishi's earring and comments on it. Kishi explains that the earring is a gift from his younger sister. Sorata notes that he is glad they found it speaking in a very quiet voice. Kishi asks if the reason Sorata likes Inarizaka-san is love at first sight because of her beauty. Sorata laughs and confirms that is definitely how it started. Kishi smiles and says he just remembered something. Sorata continues explaining that after what Kishi said, he started thinking again about why he liked her back then. He clarifies he is not making excuses. Sorata smiles while looking out the cable car window. Miyuki thinks that the Miyuki from before showed fewer emotions than she does now. Sorata thinks that no matter what he said, it never truly reached her heart, even though she would smile. Sorata tells Kishi that Miyuki kind of reminded him of Kishi himself. Sorata admits that at first he thought she was just not interested in him, but he realized that was not the case. Miyuki smiles and recalls how she used to show genuine, happy expressions. Sorata remembers how his feelings started with love at first sight, noting that his emotions back then were nowhere near how strong they are now, but seeing her happy made him feel so joyful. Sorata thinks about how he started noticing her cuteness and sweetness in her gestures, reactions, and the way she chose her words, realizing that this accumulation of traits makes up 80% of his love. Sorata blushes and admits to himself that he has finally realized this is the love he feels for her. Kishi stares silently at Sorata, listening to his reflection. Kishi continues to observe Sorata closely. Sorata looks away as he processes his thoughts, leaving only the sky in view. Sorata tells Kishi that Miyuki has many amazing sides, and Kishi remarks that Sorata is being vague about his true feelings. Sorata explains that Miyuki was like a sheltered girl in middle school who did not know about social media, so he taught her how to use it, noting that she was strong-willed. Sorata explains that when they met again, he found that she had turned into a social media warrior who replied to comments with intense energy. Miyuki suddenly hugs Sorata, causing him to shout in surprise while Kishi looks on. Sorata frantically asks Miyuki if she is hurt or okay, while Miyuki tells him that she is the one who should be asking that, even as Sorata worries about her dirty clothes. Miyuki tells Sorata that even if she tells him not to do dangerous things, he will do them anyway, calling him a handful. Miyuki leans into Sorata and hugs him tightly while he stands there stunned. Miyuki rests her head against Sorata and whispers that she really appreciates him. Miyuki whispers to Sorata that she is truly relieved that he is safe. Sorata apologizes to Miyuki, calling himself a reckless idiot, while internally realizing that all this time he was only looking at the surface level of her emotions. Mary and Kishi watch the two of them, commenting that they really are a good match and praising Sorata for having a good eye. Mary remarks that even though it is Sorata's one-sided love, it is always fun to watch because he makes things livelier despite getting scolded often. Sorata asks Miyuki if the situation makes her feel excited. Kishi listens as he looks down, his earring dangling from his ear. Kishi smiles and agrees with the sentiment. Sorata and Miyuki walk through a shop together, chatting happily. A pair of students peek around a corner, observing Sorata and Miyuki. Miyuki sits at a desk looking calm as she prepares her nails. A flashback shows the moment it all started, with Kishi asking Sorata what he is doing this Saturday. In the flashback, Sorata tells Kishi he does not have a job, so he will probably just study, and Kishi jokingly asks if he is not going on a date. Kishi hands a ticket to Sorata, telling him that listening will not cost him anything. Sorata worries aloud that tomorrow might be too soon. Kishi explains that it is a movie ticket he received from an acquaintance and hopes Sorata has fun. Sorata apologizes, but Kishi insists it is fine. Kishi continues to list off tickets he acquired for a cafe suite, bread, a department store, and even the train, while Sorata expresses his shock. Sorata hesitates, telling Kishi he knows it is rude to ask, while Kishi looks down at the tickets in his hand. Sorata asks Kishi how far they have gone, and Kishi reacts with confusion. Miyuki hits Kishi with a pen, remarking that her fiancé is too barbaric and that it would appear her hand slipped. Kishi and Miyuki glare at each other, and Kishi points at Sorata, asking why they are overreacting. Miyuki tells him not to indoctrinate Sorata with uncalled for things. Miyuki sneers at Kishi, asking if he has not progressed at all. Sorata asks what they are talking about, while others comment on how they have done at least that much since they were kids. Sorata and Miyuki walk together after Kishi told them about the store. A man in a disguise secretly follows them, thinking to himself that he is worried, and ended up coming anyway. The girl who was following them whispers that she ships it. The girl is caught by Kishi and asks what she is doing there, while the girl retorts that she is just supporting her favorite characters. The girl holds up her phone, showing messages where she extracted the date plans from the simple-minded Sorata, and thinks to herself that the girl involved is the worst. Kishi catches the girl looking at him, and she quickly offers to treat him to Starbucks if he goes home, causing Kishi to panic. Miyuki stands with her back to Sorata, looking back with a cold glare, and telling Kishi that if he is going to be a hindrance, he should disappear. Kishi laughs, teasingly remarking that it is hilarious that the two of them have not even held hands, yet leaving Miyuki looking unimpressed. Miyuki reacts with subtle annoyance, though she keeps her composure. The group sits together at a table and flips through the menu, with everyone excitedly discussing what they want to order. Miyuki points out a menu item that is labeled for couples only, and she glances over at Sorata. Miyuki tells Sorata she wants to order the couple's special, then asks him how they can prove they are actually a couple to the staff. Miyuki suggests they could hold hands, but admits it would sound like a lie if she just claimed they were fiancés, leaving Sorata flustered and wondering what to do. A woman working at the cafe approaches them and asks if they are a couple, to which Miyuki and Sorata respond. Sorata awkwardly tells the woman that they are good at being a couple, while Miyuki looks on. The woman is skeptical and insists they are not, while Kishi observes that it is no surprise they are close since they have been together since childhood. Miyuki sits by herself and eats a large parfait. Sorata watches Miyuki eat and points out that she painted her nails, realizing that she actually does enjoy sweet things after all. Miyuki proudly shows off her fingernails, explaining that Mary-san did them for her, while Sorata compliments how pretty they are. Miyuki explains that she was always unversed in such things because of her background in martial arts, so Mary-san helped her out a lot. Miyuki giggles and asks Sorata if things are going great with Hitsugino-san. Miyuki whispers to Sorata that she was not used to dealing with people or understanding personal space, but Mary-san overcame those barriers. And because of that, she has had so much fun. Meanwhile, Kishi and the other girl watch them from a distance, unable to hear their conversation. Mary tells Sorata that even though she has only known Kishi for a short time, she can see that his relationship with Sorata is going very well, and that she feels Sorata's her sentiment. Miyuki looks at a small piece of paper in her hand and remarks that Kishi is a nice person, though she struggles to find the right words. Miyuki adds that Kishi is also a little nosy, while Kishi looks on, feeling openly insulted by her comment. Sorata admits that their relationship is unrealistic, noting that even if he told people about it, very few would believe him. Sorata laughs and says he would think it was a joke if he were in their shoes, but notes that Kishi did not doubt him. Sorata smiles, reflecting that Kishi's intent was simply to worry for him, which he thinks is awesome. Kishi agrees with Miyuki's assessment that he can be nosy, and she brushes off her previous remark as they prepare to continue their plans. Miyuki smiles and tells Sorata she looks forward to watching the movie, while Sorata replies that it is probably better to watch it blind since Kishi did not tell him what it is about. Miyuki listens to Sorata, her expression shifting as she looks at him with intense focus. The group stands outside the cinema building. Sorata and Miyuki sit in the darkened theater, and Sorata panics, asking if the doll on screen just moved because it is a scary movie. Sorata looks at the screen in pure shock, wondering why Kishi recommended such a terrifying film. Sorata and Miyuki sit close together, nervously clasping their hands tight. Miyuki watches the screen with a serious, intense expression. Miyuki looks down at her hands, telling herself that she does not have cute hands. Miyuki thinks to herself that her nails are short, and her fingers feel thick and bony because she trains in martial arts. Miyuki worries that Sorata will be disappointed if they hold hands, while Sorata exclaims loudly about the prospect. Miyuki stares down and asks Sorata what he is looking at, wondering why he brought up the outside world. Miyuki admits to herself that she is simply lacking in confidence. Miyuki reflects that when they were children they held hands without knowing what it meant, and as she looks at their hands now, she gently touches the ring on his finger. Miyuki flinches in shock when their hands snap together. Sorata screams for everyone to go away as he grips Miyuki's hand in the dark theater while they both sit with their popcorn. Miyuki smiles to herself and yells at the others to go away and leave them alone. Sorata shouts that the movie was super-duper scary. Sorata tells Miyuki that he watched the entire film with his eyes squinted. Miyuki laughs and remarks that she is glad. Sorata is calm and collected, noting that horror is her favorite genre and that the movie received Kishi-san's seal of approval. Miyuki tells Sorata that she did not feel well earlier, and Sorata replies that his hand felt like it was shaking. Miyuki stares at him, wondering if it was just her imagination. Miyuki smiles and tells Sorata that she feels lively thanks to him. Sorata and Miyuki notice Kishi and the other student coming out of the theater. Kishi realizes they have been following them, and Miyuki is shocked to discover them there. Miyuki thinks to herself that she did not realize at all why Kishi was there. Miyuki takes Sorata's hand and suggests they run away. Miyuki pulls Sorata by the hand, leading him away as they leave the area. Miyuki looks back over her shoulder with a triumphant smirk. Sorata looks at her with a surprised and wide-eyed expression. Miyuki continues to lead a happy-looking Sorata along by the hand. A woman asks how much the girl can eat, while the girl shouts that she wanted all four of them to hang out. Miyuki sits by herself and eats a large parfait. Kishi tells the two girls that he can say for certain they look good together as arranged partners, and when the girl tells him she will shake him off at full power if he tails her again, she insists it was fun. The girl yells at Miyuki for saying the same thing, while Miyuki calmly replies that it is only natural since they are fiancés. The girl shouts in shock that Miyuki called him fiancé, while Miyuki apologizes and asks if she hates being called arranged partners. A companion explains that usually arranged partners are chosen by parents, while Kishi listens quietly. Miyuki considers the term fiancé, looking thoughtful. Miyuki stands in a serene garden holding a single tulip. Miyuki reflects on how she felt a wall between herself and others since she was little, including her classmates, instructors, and people she met during her lessons. Miyuki remembers how only her family was different, recalling pleasant visits to her grandfather's house to play board games. Her grandfather smiles, noting that it looks like he won the game. Miyuki looks at him with a serious expression. Her grandfather teases her for losing and looking bitter, telling her that she sucks because she is not adorable. Miyuki mentions that her floral arts teacher told her the same thing, though she meant it differently. Miyuki recalls her teacher telling her that since she won an award, she should smile, otherwise she will not be happy. Miyuki tells her grandfather that her teacher says the exact same thing he does, and he responds that the teacher is just hard on her and her classmates because she is stout-hearted. Her grandfather jokes that it is because he is well-spoken. Her grandfather pats her head and Miyuki playfully grumbles that he stinks while he tells her she is not cute. Miyuki notes that while their history is short compared to other fabrics shops in the Kyoto region, her family grew their store despite facing much criticism. Her grandfather asks Miyuki what makes her happy, and she remains silent and thoughtful in response. Miyuki admits she does not know, explaining that she only did lessons because her mother told her to, so she would not truly know even if she won an award for it. Miyuki admits that she feels like she does not understand anything at all, whether it be happiness, sadness, or what she likes and finds important. Miyuki looks down quietly, stating that she does not understand it at all. Miyuki sits across from her grandfather at the low table as they play their game. Miyuki's mother tells her she is a level-headed girl and then asks if they can use Miyuki's display for an upcoming exhibition, to which Miyuki glances over in response. Miyuki stands on a balcony with other students listening as a girl speaks to her. Miyuki turns her head to the side, her hair flowing as she moves. Miyuki stares intently while a companion suggests she use Takabana-san's items because she is older and more experienced. Miyuki notes that despite her best intentions, there was an open seam in her work. Miyuki pricks her finger while working with the flower-arranging equipment, causing it to bleed. Two girls whisper about how they need to stop Miyuki-chan from winning silver, wondering how quickly they can make her quit. Miyuki stares ahead with a blank expression, thinking to herself that they are all just a bunch of losers. Miyuki realizes that her previous unhappiness was due to her own conduct, and she asks her mother if she can stop taking floral arts lessons. Miyuki tells her mother that she would prefer to switch classrooms and get a different instructor if it is not too much trouble, and her mother asks if something bad happened. Classmates surround Miyuki, excitedly congratulating her because she got recognized again, calling it amazing. Several students watch Miyuki, their faces showing curiosity and varying reactions to the attention she is receiving. Miyuki smiles and thinks that she has finally learned to smile. Miyuki tells her grandfather that a boy she meets a couple of times gets hurt a lot, and she is annoyed by his complaining. Her grandfather reveals that he is the boy he wants her to meet. Her grandfather says that he thinks the boy will suit her and suggests they become arranged partners if they get along. Miyuki thinks to herself that this was the first time her grandfather had requested something of her. Miyuki agrees immediately. Miyuki reads in a book that a promised partner is a future spouse decided by the parents, and she dismisses it as something that is still a while away. Miyuki thinks that she never really liked people, but she decides that the arrangement is easier than deciding by herself. A young Sorata meets a young Miyuki in a garden, and she welcomes him while he blushes deeply. Young Sorata yells enthusiastically that he will absolutely make her happy. Miyuki looks at young Sorata with a blank, neutral expression. Miyuki reflects that her first impression of him was the worst. Miyuki explains that their verbal promise evolved into an average event where they met once a year during school breaks, and he gave her a New Year's gift. Miyuki watches young Sorata as he sits silently struggling to find words. Miyuki thinks about how young Sorata is so loud when he talks, as he shouts that he played a lot of soccer with his friends recently. Miyuki mentions that her lessons changed, and she started learning the piano, and young Sorata is shocked to hear she is playing the piano. Miyuki wonders what Sorata is doing while they struggle to understand each other, with Sorata excitedly asking her to play the Soap Ranger theme. Young Sorata offers a flower to Miyuki, and while Miyuki finds it a bit wilted, she decides to accept it since it was her grandfather's request. The mother is shocked to see the flower, wondering if Sorata carried it all the way from Tokyo. Young Sorata explains he grew it for his summer homework because he could not afford to buy a present at a store. His mother laughs, noting that he was in tears because he did not know what to give a girl, while young Sorata blushes and denies it. Miyuki holds the flower and thinks to herself that Sorata did that for her. Miyuki thinks to herself that despite the gesture she feels nothing. Miyuki smiles and tells him she is happy and thanks him kindly. Young Sorata thinks to himself that he made sure to give a big smile when he gave her the flower. Miyuki looks at the flower with a blank expression. Miyuki notes that the flower is already withering and wonders why Sorata had a troubled face when he gave it to her. The following year, Sorata did not show up. Miyuki tells her grandfather that she is sorry and guesses it cannot be helped. Her grandfather looks at her and agrees that it cannot be helped. Her grandfather asks Miyuki if she has come to like Sorata-kun, and she admits she really does not know. Miyuki tells her grandfather that she wanted to fulfill his request, apologizing for not realizing his intentions at the time, while her grandfather pats her head and calls her a goofball. Miyuki wonders if Sorata thought they did not match since he stopped coming over. Miyuki admits to herself that she is not good at getting along with anyone. Miyuki reflects that at least the engagement itself is not something to worry about. Miyuki feels that as a result she did not feel anything. Miyuki thinks that she never really knew anything about herself. Miyuki admits she felt only cold despair. Miyuki looks at a box overflowing with trophies and thinks it is in the way and she should toss it, while noting that another year has passed. Young Sorata jumps up onto the roof outside Miyuki's window, startling her and causing her to drop a trophy. Young Sorata greets Miyuki from the roof outside her window. Young Sorata smiles and excitedly asks Miyuki to go to the ceremonial bonfire with him, and Miyuki recalls that he finally came back. Miyuki gazes out her window at the roof and asks if that is Kamai-san, and Sorata smiles and tells her it has been a while. Miyuki wonders why Sorata is on the roof at night and questions if he failed to visit during the Okuribai festival. Young Sorata nervously struggles to find his words. Miyuki points out that his pocket is wet and asks why he came up there to talk to her, while Sorata wonders what to say. Sorata pulls a flower from his pocket, and Miyuki is surprised he brought one. Sorata explains that he learned how to transport flowers so they would last longer, and Miyuki thanks him while noting that it still looks wilted. The two children sit together in the quiet night. Miyuki asks Sorata to wait a moment and slips away to the next room. Miyuki tells Sorata that if he plans to bring flowers next time he should cut the stem at an angle and wrap it in a damp cloth and aluminum foil. Sorata marvels that Miyuki sounds like a pro and she stares at him intently. Miyuki looks at Sorata and admits she thought he was not coming back. Sorata asks why and Miyuki questions why he is asking that. Miyuki sighs, telling herself she made a fool of herself. Miyuki asks if he wanted to go to the Okurabai festival and Sorata eagerly confirms he does. Sorata admits he wants to go with her but worries they will get in trouble for sneaking out at their age. Miyuki explains that she has a 9 o'clock curfew because of her lessons and warns that it is too dark and dangerous to go out. Miyuki reminds Sorata that the Okurabai lighting starts at 8 o'clock, so they only have 10 minutes to get there. Sorata asks Miyuki why she was on the roof, and she explains that she passed Ayano-kun's room and heard him complaining about his brother being a nag. Sorata remarks that his days have been somber, so going outside with a stranger is refreshing. Sorata tells Miyuki that it is easy to look around and she agrees. Miyuki suggests they go along the Kamigawa River where there are many people for safety, but then she suddenly snaps her sandal strap. Miyuki confirms that her Geta strap broke, and Sorata reacts with surprise and concern. Miyuki apologizes for killing his enthusiasm, feeling vexed, and tells him they should go back. Sorata kneels down and tells Miyuki to hop on his back. Miyuki looks at Sorata with a surprised expression as he offers to carry her. Miyuki hesitates, asking if she is too heavy for him, but Sorata insists that it will be fine. Sorata begins to walk through the crowd with Miyuki on his back. Miyuki leans against Sorata and teasingly tells him he is horrible at lying when he claims he is not hurt. Miyuki explains that people sometimes turn off their lights 10 minutes before the event to keep the mood, and Sorata notices that it has suddenly gotten darker. Miyuki suggests they secure a good spot near the edge of the bridge because the event is about to start while Sorata looks on. Miyuki asks Sorata if he is glad that it is just the two of them while he recalls that Sorata did not visit last year and reflects on his own speech. Sorata thinks that the arrangement seemed too inorganic and incompatible, even though he knew he did not get along with others. Miyuki knows all along that she does not get along with others no matter how much she tries to patch things up. Young Sorata awkwardly tries to give Miyuki a gift, but she feels nothing even when they hold hands. A ring falls into Miyuki's hand. Miyuki stares at the ring with a confused expression. Young Sorata excitedly exclaims that it is a handmade ring, and Miyuki is surprised by the gift. Young Sorata admits he really wanted to give it to her last year, but it was hard and took some time, and he mentions hearing on the radio that a fiancé would be super happy to receive one. Miyuki tells young Sorata that the flowers from before were fine, and he laments that last year he thought they did not match. Young Sorata looks up with wide, innocent eyes. Young Sorata explains that he wondered if she would smile when he gave the gift to her. Miyuki thinks to herself that Sorata noticed her lack of emotion, and she smiles and thanks him for the effort. Young Sorata apologizes, telling her he does not know how to speak his mind. Young Sorata admits that being glad or sad never really clicked for him. Miyuki's instructors gossip about her, saying she is not worth teaching and complaining that she does not smile even when she wins, while a classmate frets that Miyuki-chan was not happy when she gave her a present. Miyuki admits she knew her lack of emotion made others uncomfortable, but she had no idea how to fix it. Sorata assumes Miyuki hates his efforts and promises not to hurt her feelings anymore, while Miyuki believes she is unqualified to receive his handmade ring because she has already given up on herself. Sorata tells Miyuki not to worry about it, leaving her surprised. Sorata loudly declares he will do his best to make her happy until she is glad to receive his gift, which draws the attention of the surrounding crowd. Miyuki quietly admires the beautiful bonfire glowing on the mountain in the distance. Sorata gently calls out Miyuki's last name. Sorata is caught off guard by Miyuki's sudden action. Miyuki softly expresses her gratitude to Sorata. Her grandfather asks if she snuck out with Sorata while Miyuki looks away defensively. Her grandfather explains that her brother tracked her location using GPS because he was worried, advising her to tell the truth if she needs something. Her grandfather pats her head, reminding her that going out alone is not allowed, and Miyuki quietly agrees. When her grandfather teases her about becoming a rebellious girl, Miyuki bluntly tells him to shut up. Ayano nervously asks Miyuki about the ring on her finger. Ayano asks why she is wearing the ring on her index finger, explaining that it normally goes on the ring finger as a symbol of their engagement, while Miyuki simple-mindedly replies she wore it there just so she could see it better. Miyuki asks if wearing it on the wrong finger means they are not promised to be together, leaving Ayano flustered. Ayano explains that promised partners are chosen by parents, whereas fiancés make the decision themselves and consent to the proposal using their own words. Ayano says that in her case, either term is fine, and Miyuki quietly ponders the word fiancé. Sorata's mother mentions that the handmade ring took Sorata an entire year to make, catching Miyuki off guard. Sorata's mother recalls that young Sorata spent a year pounding metal to craft the ring, despite knowing how difficult it would be to make it small enough for Miyuki's hand. Miyuki looks at the ring and realizes how cute, admirable, and incredibly straightforward Sorata has always been. Back in the flashback on the bridge, young Miyuki bluntly points out that the ring is rusty. Sorata nervously laughs and says it is because it is made of metal, but he stops when he notices her reaction. Young Miyuki suddenly breaks down in tears while looking at the ring on her finger. Sorata panics and yells her name in confusion while his mother looks on in surprise. As Miyuki continues to sob face down, Sorata's mother comforts her and notes how rare it is for her to cry, while a confused Sorata wonders why she is upset over a rusty ring. Ayano is also shocked by her tears and frantically promises that her big brother will find a way to fix it. Miyuki wonders why she is crying so much when she normally never cared about anything. Miyuki reflects on how she never felt any joy from her trophies or achievements, causing her to loathe herself for lacking any real attachment or drive. She remembers how deeply she hated herself for her complete lack of attachment to anything in her life. But she recalls Sorata's bright smile and his promise to keep doing his best until she is truly glad to receive his gift. Miyuki realizes her past inability to care about anything was simply because she had not met Sorata, yet remembering her grandfather's words that she just had not met her match. In her memory, young Miyuki smiled warmly and thanked young Sorata for his gift, even though she knew that withered flowers could never return to life. Miyuki looks at her ring, realizing that everything Sorata gave her became treasured before she even realized it, and she quietly thinks to herself about the word fiancé. Outside the school building, a voice explains that promised partners are those whose spouses are decided by their parents. A student explains to her classmates that a fiancé refers to two people who consent to a proposal using their own words. Miyuki smiles and blushes softly as she listens to the explanation. Her classmates playfully call it a secret, while others beg to know what they are talking about. In class, the teacher begins handing back the graded quizzes, calling out the next student as Sorata sweats nervously at his desk. Sorata receives his test paper and stares at it with a stunned and mortified expression. Sorata panics in distress when he sees he only scored a 24 on his math quiz. Sorata despairs and explains to his classmate that he has been working too much lately and has not had any time to study after school. His classmate casually holds up his own quiz, showing a score of 96, prompting an annoyed Sorata to call him a jerk. Sorata worries that he will have to take remedial classes if he does poorly on his upcoming finals, prompting Kishi to suggest a solution. Miyuki suddenly approaches Sorata and peers over his shoulder to look at his test paper. Miyuki gives Sorata a broad smile which completely startles him. Miyuki, Sorata, Kishi, and Mary gather in a room to form a study group for their final exams. Miyuki is thrilled to finally participate in a study group, while Sorata realizes they had to meet at his house because his friends' homes were either messy, occupied by lodging relatives, or owned by famous families. Sorata tells his classmates to make themselves at home until his grandfather returns in the evening, then leaves the room to get everyone drinks. Once Sorata leaves, Mary immediately begins searching through his shelves and drawers, leaving Miyuki utterly confused. Mary declares that she is checking the room for any compromising items, and even Kishi admits that he is starting to get curious. Mary asks Miyuki if she is interested in what Sorata might be hiding, and Miyuki admits she certainly is. Mary pulls a thick white book out from its hiding place, immediately catching the attention of both Kishi and Miyuki. Mary points out that the book looks very old and wonders what would happen if it contained another woman's things, causing Miyuki to panic. Miyuki bluntly states that she will burn the book if that is the case, which Mary finds adorable. Mary opens the book and discovers it is just a scrapbook of when Sorata and Miyuki were children, complete with old newspaper clippings of Miyuki's past achievements. Sorata returns with drinks and panics when he sees them holding the scrapbook, immediately rushing to grab it back, while Mary calls him stingy. The study group gets to work spreading books, notes, and drinks across the table. Everyone focuses on their studies, with Kishi, Miyuki, and Mary checking Sorata's progress before they take a break to serve more drinks. Mary stretches her arms and suggests they all hang out like this during summer break, but Sorata questions if she has too many club activities and a part-time job to make plans. Mary explains that her calligraphy and industrial arts clubs only meet biweekly, and she can easily adjust her work shifts to make time. Kishi adds that he is not in any committees and has no summer plans other than accompanying his sister for shopping, while Sorata prepares to speak next. Sorata speaks up, prompting a shocked reaction from Mary. Sorata smiles and explains that he is free whenever he is not working, though he admits he should spend more time studying. When Sorata asks Miyuki about her plans, she hesitates before explaining that she will be traveling back to Kyoto, prompting Kishi to ask if she is going back to the capital. Miyuki smiles and tells them to have fun on her behalf. Miyuki asks to use the bathroom, and Sorata tells her it is located straight down the hallway. As Miyuki steps out into the hallway, she hears someone frantically whispering her name from nearby. Sorata's grandfather arrives home early and is delighted to see Miyuki, immediately jumping to the conclusion that she and Sorata are home alone together. The grandfather quickly turns around to leave to avoid bothering them, while Miyuki frantically tries to stop him and clarify the situation. Miyuki explains that she is actually there with her classmates, and her grandfather smiles warmly, offering her candy and expressing his happiness that she has quickly made friends at her new school. Her grandfather asks how things are going with Sorata and if he has calmed down since they were younger, and he is delighted when Miyuki confirms they are getting along well. Miyuki reflects on how Sorata has always spoken his mind. Her grandfather tells Miyuki not to worry about Sakuhiko's words, advising her that she and Sorata can do as they like. Miyuki quietly acknowledges his advice. Her grandfather expresses his excitement that Miyuki came to visit them. Miyuki recalls trying to do the same thing in the past when Sorata suddenly opens the door to interrupt them. Kishi bows politely to the grandfather and apologizes for the intrusion as he prepares to leave. Kishi and Miyuki decide it is time to depart, prompting the grandfather to enthusiastically invite them back. Sorata and Miyuki wave goodbye to their classmates as the study group disperses. The sun begins to set over the residential neighborhood. As they walk together, Sorata asks if she always goes to Kyoto during school breaks, and Miyuki explains she does because she misses her father. After a brief silence, Sorata suddenly remembers something and searches through his pockets. Sorata holds up his phone and mentions that he created a 4-person group chat, which Miyuki is glad to hear. Sorata excitedly suggests they can call each other and play video games during the break, even if they cannot meet up for a study group. Sorata explains that they can still stay connected and hang out through their phones. Miyuki looks at him with a soft and quiet smile. Miyuki smiles warmly and tells Sorata that hanging out just the two of them sounds like fun. Miyuki suggests they could just spend time together alone, while Sorata nervously stammers as he tries to process her suggestion. Miyuki adds that they could even just stay on a call or something similar to keep in touch. Miyuki playfully calls Sorata a meanie and tells him he cannot be helped. Miyuki remarks that the two of them look alike. A girl points out the person's specific aura and eyes, while Sorata dismisses the idea as insignificant, confusing the girl. The girl focuses on the person seen in the picture with Mai Cha. Sorata realizes the person in the picture might be her brother just as they bump into someone in the street. The stranger greets them with an amused remark. The stranger says he was startled, having assumed there was a bustling sake festival taking place. The stranger tells them he will forgive them for bumping into him despite the wide area, as he was not paying attention. The stranger waves goodbye, leaving the group in silence as they react with surprise. A text message appears on a phone screen mentioning coming home at the end of the semester. Sorata talks on the phone, confirming he will inform his mother about his plans for summer break, and greets Miyuki. Sorata tells Miyuki that if she is fine with it, she should bring Sorata-kun along to Kyoto, with her noting that he looks forward to it. The group talks about their least favorite subjects, and one of them asks if Hitsujino-san really hated everything except for classic literature. Kishi mentions that he actually likes math because he is good at memorizing things, which the others find impressive. They continue discussing study habits, noting that Kamai-kun is also good at memorization, while Sorata admits he only achieves the bare minimum score even when he does his best. The group realizes Miyuki is invincible because she gets near-perfect marks in all subjects, while she modestly says nothing comes to mind. Miyuki reacts in shock to hear that Shinshindo does not exist in the Kanto region. Miyuki explains that Shinshindo is a popular bakery chain born in Kyoto, leaving the others surprised by the name. Miyuki raves about the breakfast and the exquisite bread, insisting that buying a kwasa there on the way home is a must. Miyuki dismisses the local convenience store as no good while the others tentatively defend it by saying it is still tasty. Sorata asks Miyuki what her plans are for summer break. Miyuki mentions doing a little bit of piano and other things while the others realize they do not have a single thing in common with her. Miyuki mentions her interest in Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, prompting Sorata to ask if she likes the song Fate. Miyuki compliments Sorata on his nice taste, leaving him confused about what she means. Miyuki compliments Sorata's various outfits as he tries them on behind a curtain. Sorata kneels on the floor, feeling overwhelmed and confused by Miyuki's ambiguous attitude toward him. Miyuki stands in a clothing store holding up a garment to Sorata to see if it suits him. Sorata looks puzzled, questioning why Ayano-kun would want him to go somewhere. Miyuki invites Sorata to return home with her while flashbacks show him being teased about his late-night activities. Sorata expresses his excitement at being invited by Miyuki, noting that he usually goes with his family every year. Miyuki touches her face and mentions she has something she confidently wants to do, leaving Sorata curious. Miyuki tells Sorata she will consult him about it another day and mentions she wants to prepare for the homecoming. The two arrive at a large building, and Miyuki asks Sorata to accompany her on a detour. Miyuki and Sorata stand in a shop, and she asks him what he wants to look at, stating she is mainly interested in clothes. Sorata agrees, noting that he needs new clothes because he grew out of his old ones. Sorata explains that Miyuki used to be taller than him in middle school, but he caught up by drinking milk every day, and they are about the same height now. Miyuki stands tall and begins to explain something about herself to Sorata. Miyuki blushes and shouts at Sorata that he has got it all wrong. Miyuki clarifies that she is talking about her normal growth, including but not limited to her bosom, which leaves Sorata confused. Miyuki holds up a shirt and looks at it with a serious expression while Sorata watches her. Miyuki apologizes as they check the clothes, and Sorata suggests she try one on while he remains visibly troubled by the situation. Miyuki steps out in a new outfit, feeling shy and asking Sorata what he thinks of it. Sorata exclaims in a squeaky voice that the outfit is very cute. Miyuki models a slightly more provocative dress, and Sorata agrees that it is cute, though Miyuki seems uncertain about it. Sorata stares in stunned silence. Miyuki crosses her arms and explains that the dress comes as a set with innerwear, leaving Sorata unsure of how to respond. Sorata debates the safest way to compliment her without sounding inappropriate, while Miyuki looks on in silence. Miyuki walks out in a black sleeveless dress and asks Sorata how she looks. Sorata tells her that it is stylish, leaving Miyuki looking at him with a neutral expression. Miyuki models an off-the-shoulder top, and Sorata thinks to himself that the situation is fun but also very troubling. Miyuki continues to model different outfits, including a plaid skirt and a casual jacket, while Sorata struggles to find the words to describe how refreshing they look. Miyuki appears in a cheongsam dress, prompting Sorata to ask if they have lost the plot, while Miyuki suggests he try something on next. Sorata tells Miyuki that wearing a hoodie would make him sweat in the summer, while thinking he wants to wear something else for a change. Miyuki tells Sorata to leave the coordination to her, as he nervously wonders which of her contradictory comments about his clothing choices is the truth. Miyuki smiles and tells Sorata that another outfit fits him well too. Miyuki praises the pretty pattern on the floral shirt Sorata is wearing. Miyuki comments that his new jacket has a cool look. Miyuki compliments Sorata on how fashionable he looks in his new outfit. Sorata complains that he cannot tell what Miyuki means by her feedback, while she teases him about messing around. Sorata gets frustrated, noting that he cannot distinguish her praise from her criticism. Sorata decides to go with the fashionable shirt because he heard Ayano-kun dislikes the other style. Miyuki apologizes, admitting she was wrong and that the shirt actually fits the atmosphere well. Sorata is shocked when he notices the shirt costs 27,000 yen. Sorata stares in disbelief at the high price tag on the shirt. Sorata suggests they check out some other stores to keep their energy up. Sorata and Miyuki browse a travel store, looking at suitcases and other travel accessories. Sorata is surprised by the affordable price of a high-quality cake they find while shopping. Miyuki asks if Sorata is growing tulips again this year, noting that he brings her flowers every single year. Miyuki playfully asks if Sorata knows what tulips mean in the language of flowers, while Sorata excitedly responds that they look lively. Sorata begins to panic, wondering if the meaning is something bad, while Miyuki denies it. Sorata winces as Miyuki explains that since he gifts her different colored tulips, every year the meaning changes, but a single tulip has a specific significance. Sorata panics when Miyuki reveals a single tulip means "you are my destiny," and he worries that he would be too embarrassed to ever face her again. Miyuki tells Sorata that while it is fine for him to investigate the meanings, she wants him to give her a present every year from now on. Sorata asks with wide eyes if it would really be okay for him to do that, and Miyuki confirms it. Sorata remains quiet, lost in his own thoughts. Sorata reflects that there are many times he does not truly understand Miyuki's real feelings. Sorata acknowledges that even if Miyuki has ulterior motives behind her smile, he cannot help it. Sorata smiles, admitting to himself that whatever she does always makes his heart dance. Sorata proudly tells Miyuki that he bought some clothes similar to the ones she picked for him, and Miyuki agrees that they fit him well. Miyuki stands in her new dress, posing confidently. Someone mentions that Miyuki is the girl who gave the speech in front of the school. Students gossip about Miyuki, calling her a total beauty from a big Kyoto family and remarking on her aura. Students continue to whisper about Miyuki, noting that her fiancé goes to their school and that the whole situation is like something out of a drama. Miyuki approaches Sorata as class begins, and a classmate looks on with interest. A student leans out of a window, calling out to her grandparents that she will be back later. The student gently places a framed photo back down, telling her mother she will be back. A student beams with excitement and greets everyone enthusiastically. Sorata worries about the end of the semester and potentially failing, while classmates tease another student about using a fake Kyoto accent. Classmates tell Miyuki she is super smart and ask her to help them, while she admits she never has problems with tests. Miyuki thinks to herself that it is normal for others to regard her so highly, while privately considering that the real beast is her brother. Miyuki confirms that her brother is indeed that kind of person. Miyuki asks Sorata about his availability during summer break, and her classmate happily mentions she is free all of August. Kishi tries to lighten the mood by offering to show Sorata videos of dogs, noting that Sorata looks too worked up. Miyuki says she will save her response for tomorrow, leaving Sorata curious. Students settle in after homeroom, wondering where they will go since their fathers are coming to visit. Students gather near the chalkboard and mention that they are going to celebrate after the test. A student asks Sorata if he could invite Arizaka-san to join them. The student crosses her arms to form an X, signaling a refusal. The student explains that she gets it and would also want to be an acquaintance of such a beautiful girl, while Sorata wonders what is wrong with her. Sorata remarks that he cannot invite Mai-cha to something she would not like, and others agree that she has a point. The student reacts with alarm, exclaiming that she does not recommend Kishi-kun. The student explains that Kishi-kun looks like a dark and evil person on the surface, and they argue that the way he talks to Sora-tan is completely different from how he treats everyone else. The student points out that Kishi-kun does not seem interested in girls at all, and Kishi-kun asks what kind of slander she is spewing about him. A student complains that everything except English is too hard and worries about potentially failing, while another student lies face down on her desk in despair. A girl tells Mary that she speaks Japanese so fluently and is so used to the culture that she forgets she is an exchange student. Mary cheers with happiness, noting that things were not like that when she first arrived in Japan. Students gossip that something seems off about Hitsujino-san, concluding that it must be because she was raised abroad and does not understand local manners. Mary explains that her mother is Japanese, so she was raised speaking the language at home. Mary recounts how she stood out while living in Canada because her father was too busy to spend time with her, so she only watched Japanese media, with her mother leading other kids to tease her for her weird intonation. Mary confirms that she grew up living with her mother and grandmother, only seeing her father during summer break, and tells her friend that her grandmother's rice was delicious. Mary's friends excitedly tell her that they are there for her if she ever feels lonely, while she looks on in surprise. Mary looks down, lost in her own thoughts. Mary works in a cafe, contemplating what it means to be lonely. Mary tells her friends that she has not felt lonely at all since arriving in Japan while she playfully draws a cat on an omelet. Mary reflects on her time in Japan, feeling that it has been irreplaceable because of the support from her parents and the fun she has had with her friends. Mary looks at a framed photo of her mother. Mary realizes that she was actually trying to forget about her mother after she passed away. Mary grips a bottle tightly in her hands as she remembers the past. Mary accidentally squeezes too much sauce onto an omelet while trying to draw on it, causing a mess that makes her apologize frantically to a customer. The cafe staff bows deeply to apologize to the customer, while Mary's coworker reminds her that she must always bow when a mistake happens. A coworker explains to a customer that Mary is an exchange student, offering that as an excuse for the mishap. Mary's coworker tells her not to worry, explaining that the amount one should apologize depends on their nationality. Mary's friend remarks that explaining cultural differences regarding apologies can be quite troublesome. Mary looks down, appearing somber. Mary receives a text message on her phone from her grandmother stating that her father will not be coming to visit while she walks down the street alone. Mary slumps forward at her desk, looking exhausted. Mary's friend invites her to go play and offers her an onigiri, but worries because Mary does not seem lively at all. Mary explains that she is too full to eat and asks why her friend is giving her the onigiri, admitting she does not really understand the gesture. Mary listens intently as her friend begins to explain. Mary's friend tells her she tried to ask her yesterday but wants to know if she would like to come to Kyoto with her during summer break. Mary proposes that it would be nice if the four of them went together, adding that she has spare rooms at her parents' house that they could use. Mary looks at her friend and asks what she thinks about the idea. Mary's friend beams with joy and tells her that she would love to go. Mary's friend looks teary-eyed and asks if it is too much for her to use all this Kyoto dialect. Mary smiles and tells her that she actually does mind the fake accent. Mary explains that a real resident would not be spoken to in such an overbaked fake Kyoto accent. Mary's friend cries and wonders what she can do as an exchange student if she wants to be friends with her. Mary looks at her friend and tells her that she was the first person to ever say something like that to her. Mary tells her friend not to let being an exchange student come between them. Miyuki tells her friend she wants to introduce her friends to her family. Miyuki's friend hugs her tightly and tells her she will absolutely go with her. Miyuki hugs her friend back and mentions that they should invite Kishi-san along while they are at it. The scene shifts to a cafe and bar named Carol. Sorata works at the cafe, taking orders and helping the time pass by calmly. Sorata notes that it is an ideal workplace while a coworker gestures behind him. Miyuki glances toward the side, looking thoughtful. Sorata looks startled as a new chapter begins. Miyuki pulls her hood up, hiding her face. A coworker looks down, seemingly deep in thought. Sorata carries a tray of drinks at the cafe, reflecting on how he worked there during the first semester and his days off to earn money. Sorata tells himself he is going to save as much as he can during the summer break so he can focus entirely on his studies in the second semester, just as a coworker asks him to take an order for table 2. Sorata thanks his senpai for swapping shifts with him, and she brushes it off with a casual response. Sorata asks if she has finished her remedial classes, and she confirms that she has. She smiles and expresses her relief, leaving Sorata feeling touched. Sorata reflects that his senpai Chisato Ugami has been kind to him since he was inexperienced. Sorata admires how Chisato is always cool and smart, wishing he could be like her. Chisato remarks that Sorata has been working every day, and she explains that she is broke from going on too many dates. Sorata says he sees that she is getting along with her boyfriend as usual, and she responds with a strained laugh. Chisato admits to herself that her claim about having a boyfriend was a complete lie, noting she was being pretentious and wanted to brag. Sorata says he has a fiancée, which leads to him coming to Chisato for love consultation. Sorata mentions his fiancée gave him an oval cookie and called it a bribe, and he asks Chisato what she thinks of that. Chisato explains that it is the law of reciprocity, while she secretly worries that things are already getting out of hand. Chisato ponders the situation. Sorata recalls that since the spring, Chisato has been earnest and innocent, leading him to jokingly call her a senior killer. Chisato laments that she feels pathetic for lying in pursuit of being a respectable senior. Sorata asks what she is doing for summer break, and Chisato explains that she tried to make her lie about having a boyfriend real by going to mixers, but she just ended up broke. Sorata sighs and notes that it is quite a big event for him to be going to his fiancée's home. Chisato looks on as Sorata explains he is nervous since he usually goes with his family, though he notes that he used to be in her care a long time ago. Sorata continues explaining that the dynamic of their relationship has shifted over the past few years, leaving his coworker stunned. Sorata's coworker screams in disbelief, asking if he has really been to her house all that time. Sorata's coworker cries out that she has never even had a boyfriend, while Sorata tells her she should be more careful about how she acts. Chisato suggests that Sorata should apologize with a gift, and he thinks to himself that he has heard that advice before. Chisato advises him to choose something that can start a conversation, noting that since his fiancée is a Kyoto girl, he should win her heart over completely. Chisato suggests Achezuke, but Sorata finds that advice a bit complicated. Sorata admits the topic is complex, while his coworker expresses surprise that he did not know it was a well-known cultural trope. Miyuki arrives, and Sorata realizes that bringing someone Achezuke is a subtle Kyoto way of telling them to go home. Sorata looks at the empty plate and wonders what he can possibly do to make his fiancée like him. Sorata stares blankly while thinking about his next move. Sorata confirms to Chisato that his fiancée has long black hair and almond eyes, and Chisato tells him not to overthink it. While Sorata and Chisato talk, other co-workers whisper about how close they seem, noting how smart and capable Sorata is. Chisato complains that she saw a suspicious girl at the cafe yesterday, while Sorata remains oblivious to the fact that his fiancée clearly likes him. Chisato remarks that Miyuki has been coming around the cafe a lot lately, wondering where she went. Chisato greets the newcomer, but she is shocked to see a girl standing in the doorway wearing sunglasses and a headscarf as a disguise. Chisato notes in alarm that the girl entered the cafe wearing a disguise. Chisato realizes that with such a strange disguise, the girl is sure to stand out. The girl crashes through the door and Sorata stares at her in shock as he drops what he is holding. Sorata realizes the girl in the disguise is Miyuki and wonders why she is there. Chisato notes that Sorata's high spirits have vanished while the girl in disguise continues her dramatic entrance. The girl crashes into the room shouting that she is bringing an arrabbiata to table 23. Chisato watches the chaotic scene and thinks it is a complete mess while Miyuki snaps photos of the mayhem. Sorata looks at Chisato and declares that he is trash. Chisato tells Sorata that he is burnable, but he is not trash, and asks him to stop with the scary replies. Sorata tells Chisato he tried to be worthy of his fiancée's attention, but realizes now that it was uncool of him. Chisato comforts Sorata, telling him that his efforts are not the slightest bit uncool. Chisato questions why Sorata insists on denying his own hard work, asking if he has been subservient since birth. Chisato smiles, beginning to explain her perspective. A woman contemplates the main reason why his fiancée fell in love with him so deeply, noting that it is because he gives his all. The woman recalls how she started dyeing her hair in college and stopped wearing glasses. She admits she joined social circles that did not fit her and tried too hard to attend mixers. The woman sighs, feeling like she has lost her way. The woman confesses that, although she is a liar and a pathetic person, she will be honest for now. The woman tells him that pushing herself will mold her future, and although it will involve burnout and pain, she will not regret it. A man enters the room and asks if it is not about time they got back to work on the floor, causing the woman to blush. The man tells Sorata not to worry about broken plates and urges him to do his best serving the girl while the woman watches them. Sorata thanks her, seriously telling her that he is brimming with confidence now. Sorata promises to do his best to follow her lead while the woman cries and calls him a good kid. The woman stares intensely. The woman sits with a serious expression, lost in thought. The woman sits quietly at a table while Sorata looks on, lost in thought. The woman swivels her chair around and Sorata calls out to her in confusion. Miyuki rests her head on her hand, lost in thought, as the world around her seems to rumble with tension. Sorata reacts with shock while his coworker looks on with a weary expression. A view of the cafe exterior is shown. A coworker whispers to Sorata, wondering what is wrong with Miyuki as she sits quietly at a table. Sorata approaches Miyuki and asks if she has decided on what to order yet, while she stares blankly ahead. Miyuki laughs and remarks that Sorata and his coworker were gone in the back for quite a while. Miyuki leans forward, wondering what they were talking about while they were supposedly busy working. Miyuki smiles and comments on how intriguing the situation is. Miyuki feels flustered and thinks to herself that if she were to say anything it would sound too serious. Miyuki tells Sorata she will just have a hot cafe au lait. Miyuki looks at Sorata with a sharp, focused expression while he walks away feeling relieved that she is not angry. Miyuki thinks to herself that this is the first time she has seen him without his ring, and she feels gloomy until Sorata returns to serve her order. Sorata leans in close to Miyuki to whisper something to her while she sits at the table. Sorata whispers to Miyuki that he asked the manager to give her something on the house. Sorata tells Miyuki that since she mentioned liking sweet things, he went and got her some French toast, though he asks her to keep it a secret between them. Miyuki blushes deeply while Sorata walks away, leaving her touched by his gesture. Sorata asks Miyuki if she has decided on anything, and his coworker tells him he single-handedly turned the situation around. Sorata greets a customer as they walk in, remarking that his outfit looks stylish, while his coworker wonders if anyone else noticed the change. Sorata asks a customer what he can get for them and offers to pull out a chair while his coworkers chat and laugh in the background. Miyuki rests her face in her hands, wondering if Sorata is popular. Miyuki thinks about the ring he gave her and feels conflicted while his coworkers watch, wondering why she is acting so strangely. Miyuki enjoys her meal at the cafe, noting that it is tasty but mentioning that there are so many people since it is the weekend. Miyuki thinks to herself that she showed up at a bad time and resolves to try not to be a bother. Sorata approaches Miyuki with a refill, asking if she has decided on anything else. Miyuki smiles and tells him that she does not want to bother him since he is busy. Sorata panics, shouting that he did not mean for her to think he wanted her to leave, as he and his coworker rush to catch up with her. A man recounts that every time he visited her home in Kyoto, her brother would tell him that he must be very busy with his studies. The man recalls looking up the meaning of that statement after his grandfather got angry, and he remembers being struck on the head when he was younger. Chisato teases Sorata that he must be busy while he shoos her away, calling her a squirt. Sorata tells Miyuki that he will try not to get near her until things cool off, noting that it is a roundabout rejection, and she sighs, saying she understands why things are so complicated. Sorata looks down, feeling dejected as he stands near the cafe. Sorata hands a drink to Miyuki as they stand together. Miyuki looks down, appearing to be in deep thought. Sorata bows and tells Miyuki he is heading out now, while his coworker gives him a thumbs up. Sorata walks toward Miyuki and thanks her for waiting for him, but when he asks what things she is referring to, she simply looks at him. Sorata and Miyuki walk together in the evening, and she asks him if work is fun, to which he enthusiastically agrees. Sorata explains that his manager and his senpai are very nice people. Miyuki listens quietly as Sorata raves about how good the staff meals are at the cafe. Miyuki walks alongside Sorata as they head down the street together. Miyuki gently takes Sorata's hand. Miyuki looks down at their joined hands. Miyuki grabs Sorata's hand and pulls him along with her. Miyuki leans in close to Sorata as they walk together under the night sky, murmuring to herself about how she still has feelings for him. Sorata narrowly avoids being struck by a car that honks at him while he remains focused on holding Miyuki's hand. Miyuki slams her body against Sorata to pull him out of the path of the oncoming car. Miyuki pins Sorata against a wall, looking intently at him while holding his face. Miyuki tells Sorata not to look away while they are inches apart. Sorata thanks Miyuki for saving him, but she tells him not to mention it as a car speeds past them. Miyuki stares at Sorata with a serious expression. Sorata panics, explaining that he did not realize a car was coming because he was too focused on looking at her. Sorata smiles, telling her that he was just so glad she was there, even though he admits he broke a lot of plates at work while stealing glances at her. Miyuki listens to him with a focused gaze. Miyuki stays silent. Miyuki suggests they hold hands since it is dangerous, and Sorata agrees, telling her that he is no match for her. Sorata waits at the station as the announcement plays that the train is departing for Kyoto shortly. Sorata meets up with Miyuki, her friend, and Kishi at the station, thanking them for waiting as he holds a bouquet of flowers. Sorata shows them the flower he bought as a souvenir based on his senpai's advice, while his friends ask if he has much luggage. Sorata reads a box labeled with various strange flavors like ramen and pickled vegetables, exclaiming that it sounds awful. The group boards the train with a girl choosing the window seat, while Sorata and the others settle into their rows. A girl excitedly tells Miyuki that they will arrive at Mt. Fuji around noon, and Miyuki replies that she is looking forward to the trip. Sorata leans toward his coworker, feeling nervous as they sit next to each other. His coworker nudges him and asks if he is feeling nervous. His coworker offers him some sugar-free candy and mentions that there is enough for everyone while they snack together on the train. Sorata asks his coworker if she has not gone to her partner's home every year, and she confirms that she has. Sorata recalls that this time he is traveling because of an invitation from Ayano-kun. Sorata looks worried as he thinks about the trip. Sorata sits and contemplates his situation, wondering about his fiancée. Sorata remains deep in thought, wondering how he will handle everything. Miyuki sits happily beside her friend, enjoying a snack on the train. Sorata sits with his coworker, hoping that everything will go along smoothly. Miyuki eats the French toast Sorata bought for her, praising how fluffy and savory it is while her friend watches her and thinks she is cute. Miyuki stands at the station entrance with her suitcase ready for the trip. The group travels together on the train, with Miyuki and her friend sitting near the window while the others occupy the seats nearby. A man suggests that his companion put his luggage down so he can have more legroom. The man asks the other about what they are carrying, noting that they do not have much luggage. The man sits quietly holding the flowers he bought. The man smiles while chatting with his companion. Miyuki's friend whispers that they are traveling together so he does not need to worry about her. The girl excitedly offers to some ejari machai snacks, with the others warning them not to eat them all before arriving. The train prepares to arrive at its next stop in Nagoya. Sorata reflects that this 5-day 4-night stay will be the longest he has ever been away from home. Miyuki's friend shows her something on her phone screen, prompting a surprised reaction. The man thinks to himself that there must be an ulterior motive behind the invitation, even though he welcomes the opportunity. A coworker gives a thumbs up and encourages the man, who is confident that the sweets his teacher recommended will pave the way for him. The man feels confident that with the sweets he will be able to succeed. The text confirms the group has arrived in Kyoto. The girl excitedly gasps at the impressive architecture as the group arrives at the station. The group marvels at the station's massive, spacious design and towering ceilings. The girl breathes deeply, commenting on how delicious the air smells. The girl points out the landmarks, including the giant staircase, the ramen highway, and the skyway, while remarking that even the train station has become a tourist attraction. The group walks through the scenic skyway, with the girl admitting that, despite being invited countless times, she never actually went sightseeing before. The girl cheers in agreement when the man confirms the fun atmosphere. The girl shouts that she wants to go up Kyoto Tower, while the man sighs, feeling exhausted and pointing out that they literally just arrived. The group stands before the towering Kyoto Tower, with the girl exclaiming in awe as she looks up. The girl uses a coin-operated telescope to get a 360-degree view, while Sorata notes that it is his first time being there. The group discusses the view, spotting the Higashi Honganji Temple and noting that Osaka Castle and Abeno Harukas are too far away to see. Miyuki remarks on the old expression that Kyoto is a gateway to history, reflecting on the city's ancient significance. Miyuki observes that walking around town reveals fragments of history everywhere, noting that even the people in textbooks once stood in the very same spots. Miyuki notes that the reality of their surroundings is enough to leave anyone speechless. The girl enthusiastically agrees that the experience makes her look forward to strolling around the city tomorrow. The group arrives at a large traditional house, staring up at its impressive architecture. Miyuki rings the doorbell while the group waits outside Sorata, feeling nervous. Sorata watches as the entrance slides open, feeling anxious about what is to come. Ayano-kun greets them with a bright, welcoming smile. Sorata and Miyuki both react with shock at the sudden, energetic greeting. Ayano-kun invites them in and offers to help them unpack, while his sister and friends recognize him as the man from the photograph. Ayano-kun welcomes everyone inside and offers them tea, while Sorata thinks to himself that Ayano-kun seems more normal than he expected. Sorata sits quietly at the table, looking down at his bowl of food. Ayano-kun presents the meal he personally prepared, while Sorata looks at him with a mix of surprise and hesitation. Ayano-kun teases Sorata, telling him that he was expecting his visit, but questioning why he is always so mean to him. Ayano-kun smiles and clarifies that his previous teasing was just a joke, though Sorata demands he stop making such jokes. Ayano-kun teases them for their elaborate greeting, while Miyuki looks on, surprised that her friend calls him Big Brother. Ayano-kun remarks on his long college break, while someone wonders where their parents are. Ayano-kun introduces himself and offers to act as their chauffeur for the trip, while Miyuki informs her friends that he is a man with too much time on his hands. Miyuki hands Sorata a box of ejari machai, telling him it is not much, but she wanted to give him a gift. Sorata apologizes profusely for receiving a gift from Tokyo, while Miyuki tells him it is fine, and jokes that the young lady is completely changing his concept of gift-giving. Miyuki looks at Sorata with a sharp, focused expression. Ayano-kun says he recognizes Sorata and begins to think back to their past meetings. Miyuki asks Ayano-kun if he appeared in a drama, but he dismisses it as her imagination while they discuss giving the flower to his grandfather. Sorata wonders where everyone went while a coworker observes that they went wherever they wanted. The coworker and Sorata wander down the hallway wondering where the others went. Sorata and Miyuki kneel before a memorial offering flowers and praying for her grandfather. Miyuki joins her hands in prayer, whispering hello to her grandfather. Ayano-kun watches the two of them with a serious look. Sorata offers flowers to the memorial, apologizing to the grandfather for not being in contact for a long time while Ayano-kun looks on. The girl asks if it is okay for her to pray as well, and Miyuki nods silently in response. Miyuki apologizes for sneaking away and causing trouble while Ayano-kun approaches them. Miyuki introduces her late grandfather to the group, explaining that he passed away suddenly last year. Ayano-kun jokingly offers his late grandfather some ejari machai, prompting Miyuki to think about how crude he is being. Ayano-kun asks Sorata if he is finished with his greetings, and Sorata gives a hesitant affirmative response. Ayano-kun asks if all the luggage belongs to Sorata, noting that he seems to have brought quite a few bags. Sorata realizes that he forgot something and gasps. Sorata presents the gift he brought to Ayano-kun, who remarks that the packaging looks terrible. Ayano-kun questions why all their gifts are from Kyoto and asks if that is trendy at their school, while Sorata becomes annoyed by his attitude. Ayano-kun tells Sorata to put the luggage down, thanking him for bringing the gifts and saying he is sure their father will eat them. Ayano-kun mentions that things have been hectic since the situation with the manservants, but assures them that things have calmed down and they are welcome to visit whenever. Sorata mentions that his parents have also wanted to meet Ayano-kun's parents, believing they must be lonely, and Ayano-kun finds the idea surprising. Ayano-kun teases Sorata about his habit of referring to himself as Boku, which leaves Sorata visibly flustered. Sorata reflects that he has actually been curious about many things lately. Ayano-kun smiles and teases Sorata, noting that the way he speaks has changed quite a bit in just a few years. Ayano-kun sternly asks Sorata who exactly he is trying to copy with his current behavior. Ayano-kun dismisses the tension, telling Sorata that it is fine, while Sorata looks on feeling uneasy. Miyuki asks Sorata if he knows what her grandfather's last words were, and Sorata admits he does not. Miyuki tells Sorata that her grandfather's last words were an instruction for him to get along with Sorata-kun, leaving Sorata stunned. Sorata questions why Miyuki, who has never left Kyoto, would go to such lengths to pick a school in Tokyo, noting that her deviation value does not match. Miyuki looks at Sorata and asks him why he thinks she did that. Miyuki asks again why she chose that school, noting that she was an honor student who could have aimed much higher. Miyuki reveals that she did it because of a notice from her grandfather. Sorata watches Miyuki, who is deeply focused on something. Miyuki admits it was in her grandfather's will, which causes Sorata to react in shock as he realizes the weight of that decision. The narrator confirms that Miyuki went to Tokyo because of her beloved grandfather's final wishes. Miyuki asks Sorata if he thinks it is a waste to intentionally narrow her range of possibilities. Miyuki tells Sorata that she wants him to start that conversation because she truly wants to come back to Kyoto. Sorata calls out to Miyuki, asking for her opinion on the situation. Sorata shows Miyuki a new outfit he tried on, asking her how it looks. Miyuki exclaims in delight that the new look is so cool and wonderful. Miyuki blushes as she tells Sorata he looks handsome while he smiles and tries to play it cool. Miyuki beams at Sorata and tells him that whatever he wears suits him perfectly, making him happy. Miyuki closes her eyes with a blissful smile, saying she loves it so much. Miyuki notes that there are so many cool clothes to choose from that it is troubling, but decides she is going with the one Sorata is holding while he looks at her with a soft smile. Sorata holds up another shirt, but Miyuki bluntly tells him that it would be better if he did not go with that one. The corner highlighting Sorata's unique shirts is displayed, showcasing various designs like the eye-patch Daruma Sushi and alien shirts. A preview shows Sorata wearing his various unique shirts, teasing what will be featured in the next volume. Miyuki laughs and smiles brightly while holding her face in her hands, flanked by her two friends who look on with annoyed expressions. Miyuki's friends interrupt, asking what is happening and pointing out that she has not said anything to them while Miyuki looks flustered. The friend introduces herself to the group in a heavy dialect, shocking the others. The friend proudly explains that she studied the Kyoto dialect online and asks how her attempt sounded. Miyuki stares at her with a stern expression and tells her not to ever do that again. Miyuki Inarizaka is a first-year high school student born on August 21st, standing at 167 cm, who enjoys learning and hates fine arts. Sorata Kamai is a first-year high school student born on February 12th, standing at 168 cm, who loves Japanese history and dislikes math. Miyuki is pictured with a tiny Sorata sitting on her shoulder as a special thank you to the staff involved in the volume. The cover art for the third volume of the series features Miyuki with a tiny Sorata on her shoulder, along with promotional information about the series' sales. The group walks together along a set of train tracks reflecting on their everlasting memories. Ayano-kun chats with Sorata, suggesting that even Miyuki would be fine with his proposal. Sorata stares blankly with his eyes wide open, processing what he just heard. Sorata insists that the school does not have to be in Kyoto as long as it matches Miyuki's abilities, suggesting a Tokyo school instead. Sorata looks down, feeling unsure as he considers his options. Ayano-kun apologizes for dropping this news on him so suddenly and gives Sorata time to think it over. Ayano-kun tells Sorata that there is still time left, so he should think it through carefully as he walks away. Ayano-kun loudly urges Sorata to listen up as they stand together. Ayano-kun shouts that now is the time to act, complaining that Sorata has no stamina and the others are not listening, while also noting the abnormal heat in Kyoto. Miyuki browses through a guidebook, suggesting they can visit the spots they cannot cover quickly at a later time. Chisato complains that Sorata only ever voices his complaints, while Ayano-kun points out a location on the map that would be perfect for cooling off. Ayano-kun steps in, offering to be their chauffeur and take them wherever the car goes. Ayano-kun remarks on his companion's high spirits and asks if they have forgotten anything. Ayano-kun asks Sorata if he really has never gone sightseeing in Kyoto despite coming every year, and tells him to enjoy himself if he feels down. Ayano-kun offers to let Sorata ride shotgun so they can get along. Ayano-kun tells the others he will be nearby and they should contact him whenever they need anything before walking through the temple gate. The girl exclaims how spacious the temple grounds are as they walk through. The group walks together, marveling at the green maple trees and the calming atmosphere, while Miyuki corrects a quote about the view. The group admires the historic architecture of the aqueduct bridge. Miyuki explains that the structure is an aqueduct canal from Lake Biwa known as Suirakaku, remarking that it feels as if time has stopped there. Miyuki points out the lotus pond on the other side of the temple, while the others agree that the scenery is marvelous. The group explores the temple grounds surrounded by trees and fellow sightseers. Sorata checks his phone as Miyuki and her friend walk ahead of him, waving and laughing while surrounded by trees. Sorata points towards something in the distance as he continues to talk with his friend while walking on the path. Miyuki checks her phone while her friend happily chats and walks alongside a man. Miyuki laughs and remarks that she has already called her big brother, excitedly suggesting they do one more thing, while Sorata tells her she gets too carried away. The group arrives at a large traditional shrine gate. Miyuki excitedly says she absolutely has to visit a shrine since they are in Kyoto, and her friend rolls her eyes, noting that she has already heard that. Miyuki listens closely to her friend. Sorata questions what the sign says, and his friend notes that there is something written on the board about one of Kyoto's 7 wonders. Miyuki pulls a rope to ring the bell while her friend reads the sign, which explains that the sacred tree at the Aoi shrine is said to be 2 trees wedded into one by the god of matchmaking. Miyuki's friend prays fervently for Soratan's feelings to be realized, while Sorata awkwardly tells her not to make wishes on his behalf. Kishi joins them and prays for Kamai-kun's peace of mind, leaving Sorata shocked that even he is participating. Miyuki watches Sorata, wondering what he is doing while he feels flustered by the entire situation. Miyuki looks away, telling her friends she does not need a wish and will just pray for them instead. Miyuki gazes at a traditional shrine scene in her mind, and a man asks if she is all right. Miyuki tells Sorata that she just wanted to show this place to her grandfather, and he looks at her with a gentle, understanding expression. Miyuki stands beneath a torii gate at dusk, remarking that she is certain her grandfather would be glad she brought her friends here. Miyuki remarks that the sightseeing spots they visited have a different feel in each season while her friend cheers that summer has finally arrived. Miyuki adds that if the timing is right, even national treasures that are normally unseen will be open to the public. Miyuki says that Kyoto is special no matter when you visit, because it offers something unique throughout the year. Miyuki's friend wonders if she should just live in Kyoto, but the man beside her retorts that she lacks the gracefulness required for such a lifestyle. Sorata gazes at Miyuki, reflecting on her words. Miyuki's friend jumps across stones in a river, shouting enthusiastically as Sorata follows her lead. Miyuki's friend teases Sorata for being slow while Miyuki looks on and assures her friend that she is fine. Miyuki sits on the grass and tells Sorata that her skirt makes it hard to jump, so she slides closer to sit beside him instead. Miyuki flips through the thick handmade guidebook she created while Sorata watches her. Sorata asks Miyuki if something happened, noting that she has been wearing a depressed expression all day. Sorata enthusiastically tells Miyuki that it is thanks to her that he is having so much fun, assuring her that he is not having a bad time at all. Sorata admires the thickness of the guidebook, asking Miyuki if it was hard to make, and she admits that she got a little carried away. Miyuki observes that while what Ayano-kun said was true, it misses the main point. She thinks back to the beginning, acknowledging that she wants Miyuki back in Kyoto, and she wants Sorata to be the one to initiate that conversation. Miyuki reflects that everything she has done up until now was an attempt to carry out her beloved grandfather's will, even though it likely went against her own wishes at the time. Sorata realizes how much Miyuki loved her grandfather, recalling how she was shaken when she learned why she had come to Tokyo and how she viewed it as an order she had to fulfill. Sorata reflects on how he initially hoped it was not the case, but as time passed he grew accustomed to the situation and realized she had accepted him. Miyuki pulls her skirt up, shocking Sorata, and insists that there is more to the situation than meets the eye. Miyuki grabs Sorata's hand and dashes forward, pulling him along as they run. Miyuki pulls Sorata onto the stepping stones in the river, telling him that she wanted him to like this place too. Sorata contemplates the idea that her actions are all for her grandfather's sake, but he quickly dismisses the thought as unlikely. Sorata trips and stumbles, and a nearby person scolds him, warning him not to be a pervert on the prowl. Sorata staggers and loses his balance completely. Sorata falls into the water with a splash, leaving Miyuki to shriek in alarm. Miyuki laughs uncontrollably and apologizes, claiming her hand slipped. Sorata sits in the water, drenched and startled by the sudden fall. Miyuki looks down at Sorata with a calm, unreadable expression. Sorata looks up at her with a gentle, slightly dazed smile. Sorata resolves to be brave throughout the upcoming trip. Miyuki smiles and promises she will be sure to talk to Miyuki-san properly, while her friend wonders aloud if her grandfather's words really were everything. The narrator notes that no matter what that answer may be, the journey continues. Miyuki's friend asks what happened to Sora-tan, commenting that it is scary how the person who was just thrown down is now laughing. The traditional house stands tall against the sky. Ayano-kun laughs and tells Sorata that if he wanted to keep cool, that is fine, while Sorata awkwardly dries his hair with a towel. Ayano-kun scolds Sorata for flapping his gums on the way home, reminding him that swimming is prohibited in that area. Ayano-kun smiles as he asks Sorata if he is already getting into trouble on his very first day there. Ayano-kun is relieved that Sorata is home, while Sorata and Miyuki stand nervously before him. Ayano-kun serves a matcha latte to the girl, thanking her while she wonders why he is using a computer while dressed in a kimono. Ayano-kun asks Sorata if he is feeling nervous, while the others watch him with mounting pressure. Sorata swallows hard as Ayano-kun gazes at him intently. A close-up captures a tense moment as they stand face to face. Ayano-kun smiles kindly and suggests that Sorata should take a shower first to get warm, warning him that it would be bad if he caught a cold. Sorata laughs and says he does not even know what his father is thinking, while thinking to himself that Ayano-kun's malice feels far more intentional. Ayano-kun asks the group what they did for the day, and they tell him they visited Nanzenji Temple and Shimagamo Shrine, prompting him to remark that it sounds nice. Ayano-kun questions if they are really fine with staying in such a cramped house, offering that there are plenty of other places they could stay instead. Ayano-kun teases the young people, telling them they are funny for acting so surprised. A delicious meal featuring crab and various side dishes is served. Miyuki's friend clasps her hands together in excitement, declaring that Kyoto is the home of amazing side dishes. Miyuki's friend gushes over how beautiful Miyuki looks, and Miyuki asks if she has warmed up after using the shower while her friend thanks her. Miyuki's friend asks if she fell into the Kamo River, but then thanks her for offering to make some warm tea. Sorata shivers, thinking it is far too late for him to admit he is cold. Sorata muses that Kyoto summers are usually not this hot, so he is actually glad he fell into the river to cool off. Miyuki asks Sorata what happened as he wipes himself down with a towel while water splashes onto a plate. The room goes silent as the group realizes a mistake has been made, and Miyuki's friend panics, offering a rag and worrying if anyone was burned by the hot food. Miyuki's friend opens the box she brought only to find it is empty and apologizes, explaining that she ate all the rare candy the day before. Miyuki's friend screams an apology while Sorata and Kishi watch on, feeling sorry for her. Ayano-kun serves Sorata a daikon taten dish, and when Sorata compliments the taste, Ayano-kun asks if he thinks his future in-laws are harassing him, which Sorata denies. Miyuki blushes and swallows hard as she admits that she helped season the dish. Miyuki nervously admits to making the vinegared miso while Sorata praises her cooking, but she tells him to stop already. Miyuki laughs softly when Sorata asks if the food was disgusting, and he quickly reassures her that it was actually delicious. Sorata is shocked to learn that Miyuki's aunt taught her how to cook and wonders aloud when she became so skilled. Ayano-kun expresses his happiness that Sorata and his little sister have become close, noting that she lets him stay at her place. Ayano-kun mentions that he was born and raised in Tokyo, and being married for 20 years has made him quite familiar with Kyoto, though he realizes his sister rarely uses the local dialect. Ayano-kun laughs and asks what Sorata is talking about when he brings up the dialect. Ayano-kun explains that what people call the Kyoto dialect is complex, noting that standard Japanese is a relatively recent creation and questioning if the Tokyo dialect truly deserves to be the standard. Ayano-kun jokes that by that logic, Nara should be considered the capital. Ayano-kun chortles to himself. Ayano-kun laughs and remarks that the Tokyoites are certainly a funny bunch. Miyuki tells the others to ignore the comments about the dialect as no one speaks that way nowadays, and asks if they are being a pain in the rear. Miyuki's friend explains that joking about cutting off the water supply from Lake Biwa is a classic Kansai joke. Ayano-kun and his father agree that they are currently outnumbered by the guests. A serene stone water basin sits quietly on the temple grounds. Miyuki suggests that Sorata take a hot bath to rest, while her friend excitedly thanks her for the hospitality. Miyuki notes that they have too many people to bathe separately, so two of them will have to the tub. The group contemplates the awkward situation of having to the bathtub. A small frog figurine sits on a shelf in the bathroom. Miyuki stares intently, wondering who will go in first. Sorata sits in the cramped bathtub, remarking on how tight it feels and suggesting they take turns being submerged. Sorata expresses his anxiety, wondering if he should have let the ladies go first, while his friend comments that the situation is difficult. Sorata panics, worrying that if he says anything wrong, Miyuki will call him shameless again, while his friend tells him to be more careful. Sorata talks to his friend, worrying about how he needs to be careful not to make the wrong move and be treated like a pervert. His friend tells him to focus on being considerate and keeping the tub clean so they leave no evidence behind. The girl cries out, questioning why they did not let the ladies go first. The girl argues that hair drying and skincare take time, so the ladies should definitely have gone first, while Miyuki watches calmly. Miyuki and the girl sit together in the steamy bath, relaxing after the long day. Sorata gazes at Miyuki as she holds the package, feeling touched by her thoughtfulness. Miyuki bows and prays with Sorata, showing deep respect for her late grandfather. Miyuki looks over at her friend, who calls her name softly. Miyuki admits to her friend that she did not say something earlier, but confesses that her mother is no longer around. Miyuki's friend looks at her with concern while Miyuki struggles to find the words to continue. Miyuki's friend tells her the feeling is mutual and apologizes for making her worry. Miyuki and her friend laugh together, sharing a moment of genuine connection. Miyuki tells her friend that she loved her mother dearly and confirms she also loved her grandfather very much. Miyuki's friend remarks on how large the bathtub is, noting that her own aunt has one of a similar size. Miyuki enters the room to find Ayano-kun with a basket of laundry, and he greets her with good timing. Sorata startles when he hears someone approaching and wonders who is coming in. Sorata and his friend apologize to each other, realizing that they were both just startled because they thought the other was a ghost. Miyuki's friend offers to wash everyone's clothes while Sorata and Kishi look on, unsure how to respond. Miyuki's friend offers to wash Kishi-kun's clothes as well, and when he declines, she asks if there is anything he would like to eat tomorrow, noting how considerate she is. Ayano-kun reflects on how Miyuki used to say she did not have any friends, and he admits that he feels sorry because he does not know how to handle her friends visiting for the first time. Miyuki's aunt smiles gently as she comments that both Ayano and Miyuki are clumsy and timid. She continues to look towards Sorata with a warm, affectionate expression. Miyuki's aunt adds that they have brought wonderful friends along despite their shortcomings, while Mary and Miyuki sing a traditional Kyoto street song, leaving Kishi and Sorata watching them with blank expressions. The aunt explains to Sorata that Miyuki has gradually changed since meeting him, adding that she is incredibly happy Miyuki went to Tokyo. Sorata smiles softly and admits he is also glad to hear that, while Kishi watches him from the side with a worried look. The aunt suddenly asks Kishi if he is Takeyami Kishi, and mentions how much she loved seeing him on the Getsuku drama slot, prompting Kishi to tell her she has the wrong person, while Sorata sighs and mutters that he is done with this family. Ayano and another host serve various Kyoto dishes they prepared, including manganji pepper, rolled pork, and pickled mabuna greens, while Kishi watches them nervously and wonders if Ayano is acting up here as well. Kishi politely declines the offers by raising his hand and flatly denying everything. Mary and Miyuki sleep side by side under a blanket while a loud alarm clock rings in the morning. Mary points out the beautiful pattern on the kimono sash. She highlights the stylish appearance of the loose collar on the kimono. Mary confidently asserts that the two features together make for an unbreakable match. Mary strikes a dramatic pose in her new striped kimono and gasps in excitement. Mary proudly boasts that her dressing is perfect, while her friend stands beside her looking slightly sweat-dropped and amused by her antics. Miyuki explains that since they are going to be strolling Injin and Kiyomizu, she lifted the hem slightly to make it easier to walk. She asks Mary if anything is uncomfortable, but Mary replies that she is fine despite noticing the hem is somewhat short. Mary mentions that the kimono hurt while she was being dressed, prompting Miyuki to offer to loosen it a bit, though Mary reassures her that the pain has completely stopped. Mary excitedly claims that she could even run in her kimono, but Miyuki warns her to stop because it will loosen the fit. Miyuki explains that since she wears a kimono, everyday comfort is a major concern, pointing out that modern undershirts with cooling materials make them much more comfortable. Miyuki excuses herself to go change, returning shortly after fully dressed in her own kimono, which leaves Mary completely astonished. Mary is amazed that Miyuki changed in under 5 minutes, though Miyuki notes that she still has room for improvement since her mother can do it even faster. Mary wishes she could put on a kimono by herself, which suddenly grabs Miyuki's intense interest. Miyuki suddenly grabs Mary's hands with a firm grip, catching her off guard. Miyuki passionately vows to guide Mary every step of the way, leaving Mary feeling intimidated. Miyuki eagerly asserts that a simple dressing can be learned in just a single day, while their friend remarks that it sounds like a multi-level marketing pitch, and Mary wonders if kimonos had a higher skill ceiling. Miyuki reflects on her own early difficulties, remembering how her undershirt used to stick out and the obi pattern would turn out weirdly. Miyuki smiles as she recalls how she practiced repeatedly to master the dressing process. Miyuki encourages Mary to learn so she can wear it beautifully and showcase her dedication to everyone. Mary admits that hearing it framed that way makes her feel a little embarrassed, while Miyuki listens quietly. A sudden loud, choking sound nearby startles both of them, causing them to turn in surprise. Miyuki slams the door open to check if everyone is okay, finding Ayano-kun energetically trying to dress Sorata and Kishi. Sorata groans in pain as Ayano-kun squeezes him tightly, telling him to act like a man, while Mary and Miyuki watch the chaotic scene in silence. Sorata gasps for air, looking completely exhausted and drained. Kishi declares that he never wants Ayano-kun to dress him again since it felt like his dignity was at stake, while Miyuki looks on and quietly praises them for their hard work. Sorata and Kishi lie slumped on the floor side by side, completely worn out after being fitted into their kimonos. Miyuki reacts with delight upon seeing Sorata's outfit, telling him that, while his work uniform looked lovely, this fits him remarkably well. Miyuki smiles warmly as she continues to speak with Sorata. Miyuki explains that she is fascinated by his look though in Sorata's anxious imagination, he worries she is actually laughing at how miserable he appears. Sorata awkwardly offers to go change right away, but Kishi holds him back and reassures him that the outfit actually suits him very well. Kishi asks Sorata if Miyuki was the one who dressed him too, which Sorata confirms is not the case. Mary proudly notes that she did Miyuki's hair while they were getting dressed as their friend praises the result. Sorata turns his head to get a proper look at Miyuki. Miyuki stands elegantly with her hair styled beautifully in her kimono. Sorata's eyes widen in absolute awe as he stares at Miyuki. Sorata smiles happily, reflecting that seeing Miyuki in a traditional kimono feels much more familiar and relaxing to him than seeing her in her school uniform. Kishi jokingly remarks that anyone can look good in the right clothes, prompting Mary to tell him to just compliment her normally. Mary enthusiastically cuts in, declaring that they are fully ready and should hurry up and head out. Mary raises her fist and cheers to their second outing on the Kyoto trip, with Miyuki, Sorata, and Kishi following her lead. The group arrives at a bakery and cafe called Shinshindo for breakfast. Miyuki happily declares that since they are in Kyoto, they have to eat bread for breakfast, leaving Sorata and Kishi confused about eating Western food. Kishi looks at his food, still wondering why they are eating bread. Miyuki proudly presents a plate of rolls, explaining that Kyoto is a major battleground for bread shops, which surprises Mary and Sorata. Miyuki adds that Kyoto was ranked first in bread consumption, and Atsu was second in coffee consumption, helping Mary understand why there are so many coffee shops around. Mary happily takes a crunchy bite of her bread. Mary delights in the taste of the butter and bread, while Kishi and Sorata comment on how hearty the breakfast is. Mary warns Miyuki to use a paper apron so she does not get her kimono dirty, while a group of passing girls suddenly stop and look at Miyuki in shock. The group of girls stares intensely at Miyuki as Kishi watches them. The girls excitedly greet Miyuki while Mary asks who they are, and Miyuki shyly explains they are her old classmates from middle school. The girls chat about how Miyuki went to school in Tokyo and has returned for summer break, before loudly recalling a middle school rumor that Miyuki's husband lives in Tokyo and promising to spread the news. Kishi and Mary watch with confused expressions as the girls get overly excited about the rumor. One of the girls points at Kishi and loudly compliments how incredibly handsome he is. The girls wonder if he is famous and mention they have seen him on TV, while Kishi politely tries to deny it. The girls identify Kishi as the son of the famous actress Chimi Mehama, leaving Sorata completely shocked, while Kishi stays quiet. Miyuki wraps her arm around Sorata and tells the girls they are mistaken, introducing him as Sorata Kamai, which leaves Sorata panicking in surprise. The girls wonder who the short boy is and if he is from a wealthy family, while Kishi quickly clarifies that Sorata is just their classmate and friend. The girls ask which school they attend, wondering if it is the super elite Kaie High. Mary informs them that they actually go to Chimori High, which completely stuns Miyuki's former classmates. The girls admit they do not know much about Tokyo schools, while Kishi silently grumbles about their immediate change in attitude. Kishi notes that luckily, Miyuki has not noticed their condescending tone, though he suspects she might just find it amusing. The blonde girl comments that she thought Miyuki would go to a prestigious school like her brother, instead of an ordinary one, which causes Miyuki to glare at her silently. The blonde girl adds that it is a complete letdown because she thought Miyuki was above their level, while Kishi looks on with a disgusted expression. Sorata panics and quickly covers Miyuki's ears to prevent her from hearing the insults, leaving her completely confused. Sorata screams in anger, shouting that saying such horrible things to Miyuki is completely unacceptable. Sorata continues to yell that direct bad-mouthing is terrible for the heart, and makes him miss Ayano-kun's subtle jabs, while Mary loudly agrees with him and the classmates look on with annoyed expressions. Mary dramatically mimics how Miyuki would have responded to the girls, while Kishi notes that she knows Miyuki too well. Meanwhile, the former classmates apologize, explaining they simply look up to Miyuki a lot. One of the former classmates expresses regret, saying she wishes they had talked more during middle school. The classmate adds that she wishes they had been closer. Mary gasps in amazement as the group arrives at the entrance of a grand shrine. Mary spots a food stall and asks if a festival is happening, but Miyuki explains that there is no festival and the stalls are actually open all year round. Mary is delighted, exclaiming that she gets to enjoy a festive mood every single day. As they walk, Sorata tells Kishi that he was really cool back there, which leaves Kishi looking confused. Sorata clarifies that he was referring to Kishi plugging Miyuki's ears, and Kishi explains that it is always best not to listen to unpleasant remarks that stick in one's head. Kishi confesses that he initially disliked Sorata because people are usually only interested in superficial appearances, noting that everyone hates the disappointing feeling that follows. Kishi looks at Miyuki and says he did not want her to experience that kind of disappointment, just as Mary loudly waves and calls them to come over. Mary happily points out that Miyuki is having a wonderful time as Miyuki enthusiastically calls the group over to see the bronze statues of Ryoma Sakamoto and Shintaro Nakayaka. Mary laughs and declares that it is all thanks to Sorata presenting him with a playful award, while Sorata looks completely bewildered about what he did. In a flashback, Miyuki's grandfather lies bored in a hospital bed hooked up to enrollment 4 drip. The grandfather asks Miyuki if she brought any games like Go or Hanafuda to play, but she gently tells her grandfather to rest up instead. In a flashback, Miyuki stands by her grandfather's hospital bed, while he remarks that despite her leaving early after hearing about his collapse, his worries were for nothing since she is still breathing. Miyuki looks down in shock as she notices how thin her grandfather has become while her grandfather calls out her name. The grandfather sits up in bed and asks Miyuki how Sorata is doing. The grandfather asks if they are getting along, and when Miyuki explains they only have limited contact, he offers to give her some pocket money so she and Ayano can visit Tokyo. Ayano stands in the hallway outside the room while the grandfather asks Miyuki if she is truly fine with the marriage contract. Ayano enters the room and asks if they have changed their opinions on the matter, flatly stating that his own opinion remains unchanged. As Ayano walks away, the grandfather tells Miyuki that he wants them to spend more time together and notes that any outcome is fine as long as she is happy. The grandfather smiles warmly and tells Miyuki that he still believes she and Sorata suit each other. The grandfather gently pats Miyuki's head and tells her to get along with Sorata. Back in the present, Mary excitedly displays a fortune slip, shouting that she pulled a supreme fortune. Kishi sweatily points out that it was actually her 7th pull, highlighting the pile of other slips in her hands, but Mary insists she will only believe in the one she wants. As the group walks down Ninenzaka, Mary remarks on the abundance of fortune slips at this tourist spot and admits she pulled quite a few. Miyuki looks at her own excellent fortune slip, which advises her to let her true feelings show so her future can shine. Miyuki happily assumes her future will be bright since she is always sincere, while Sorata silently questions where that brightness would be. Mary points out a Tanabata poster on the bulletin board, despite it being mid-August, while Sorata tells Kishi that Miyuki is more inconsiderate than sincere, and Kishi agrees she does not mince her words. Miyuki explains that the Tanabata poster is displayed because it follows Japan's old calendar, prompting Mary to ask if Tanabata is the story about 2 people being forcefully torn apart. Miyuki smiles softly and admits she has loved the Tanabata story for a very long time. The legend begins by introducing Vega, the hardworking daughter of the Emperor of Heaven. The narrative continues explaining how Vega spent all her days weaving kimonos for the gods, which filled her father with sadness due to her lack of play. The story explains that her father went in search of a suitable companion, eventually finding a young cattleman named Altair on the other side of the Milky Way. Miyuki explains that the two met and mutually fell in love. Miyuki reflects on how they first met and fell for each other when they were children. The legend continues, showing that they became inseparable and forgot their duties, leaving her loom still and his cattle uncared for. The story describes how this neglect angered the Emperor of Heaven, who separated the couple to opposite sides of the Milky Way. The narrative concludes showing that the Emperor eventually took pity on his grieving daughter and allowed the couple to reunite only on the night of July 7th. The story shows the couple keeping that single day of reunion in mind. Miyuki finishes her explanation of the traditional Japanese star legend of Vega and Altair. Mary reacts with excitement, declaring that only being able to meet once a year sounds incredibly romantic and admitting she has a weakness for such stories. Kishi flatly states that he would be perfectly fine with the arrangement since he enjoys being by himself, leaving Mary to grumble that he is a lame partner. Miyuki tells Mary that the wish slips will look like stars in the sky when lit by lanterns, and she invites Mary to go to the festival tomorrow. Mary and Miyuki both pump their fists excitedly, agreeing that they absolutely must go. Suddenly, a heavy rainstorm begins to pour down, catching them off guard. As the downpour continues, the group scrambles to find shelter under a roof and prepare their umbrellas. They lament the failed sunny weather forecast, but decide to head to Kiyomizu-dera Temple as soon as the rain lets up. Miyuki notices that her geta strap broke when they started running, and Sorata is relieved that she did not fall. Sorata immediately offers to fix Miyuki's broken geta strap for her. Sorata giggles proudly while Miyuki looks at him with a surprised expression. Sorata suggests they sit near a park so he can fix the strap, and he puts Miyuki on his back, telling Kishi and Mary to go ahead and meet them at Kiyomizu-dera Temple. Under a wooden shelter in the park, Sorata crouches down to diligently repair Miyuki's sandal. Miyuki looks at Sorata and softly thanks him, prompting Sorata to chuckle. Miyuki reflects that the moment reminds her of when they were young and went to see the Okuribai, recalling how she felt too heavy for him to carry, though Sorata quickly denies it. Miyuki notes that Sorata still sucks at lying, while Sorata nervously insists that she was as light as cotton back then. Sorata secretly feels relieved that he researched how to fix geta straps right after that childhood event, before handing the repaired sandal back to Miyuki to try on. Miyuki happily notes that the sandal is as good as new, while Sorata smiles and reflects that he hasn't changed at all since they were children. Sorata looks up at Miyuki with a gentle smile. Sorata reflects on various romantic declarations of making Miyuki happy, realizing he cannot bring himself to say any of those dramatic lines, while Miyuki giggles softly beside him. Miyuki smiles and tells Sorata that she is glad he is here with her, while Kishi watches them quietly from a distance. Kishi watches the two of them from under the shelter, wondering if those are Miyuki's true feelings. Miyuki reacts with surprise to a sudden question from Sorata. Miyuki asks Sorata what he means by his question, leaving him completely startled. Sorata panics and stammers, trying to claim that he did not actually mean to ask her that. Sorata stares at Miyuki with wide, nervous eyes. Miyuki gazes back at Sorata with a calm, silent expression. Sorata musters his courage and asks Miyuki if her decision to attend high school in Tokyo was really because of her grandfather's will. Miyuki sighs, guessing that Ayano was the one who told him, and complaining that her brother always says unnecessary things. Miyuki looks down, staying silent for a moment. Miyuki admits that it is true, but notes that there is a catch. Miyuki looks directly at Sorata and clarifies that going to Tokyo was ultimately her own choice. Miyuki explains that she interpreted her grandfather's words as an instruction to attend the same school as Sorata. Sorata sighs with a massive sense of relief, smiling as he says he understands. Miyuki smiles gently as she watches him. Sorata realizes that he was essentially worrying over nothing the entire time. Miyuki asks Sorata what her brother told him, and Sorata recalls Ayano saying that it would be better if Miyuki switched schools, and wanting Sorata to start that conversation. Miyuki notes that fulfilling her grandfather's wishes by going to a school that simply fit her academic level was a waste of her potential. Sorata looks at Miyuki gently and admits that even now he cannot help but agree with Ayano, which surprises Miyuki. Sorata reflects that although Miyuki chose a school matching her scholarly ability, it groups her into a situation that narrowed her future possibilities. Sorata declares that narrowing her possibilities is wholly unacceptable, and suggests she should attend a school that truly suits her, even if it is back in Kyoto. Miyuki is completely stunned by his suggestion, staring at him with a shocked expression. Miyuki stands up and walks out into the rain while Sorata looks on. Sorata asks if she would be fine with them only meeting once a year and only for 10 minutes. Miyuki stops in the rain and quietly agrees. Miyuki smiles warmly and says she understands, promising to bear his words in mind. Sorata looks completely stunned and dazed by her response. Miyuki thanks Sorata for fixing her geta strap and tells him she is going to join the other two, walking off into the rain. Sorata looks stunned, completely frozen by her abrupt departure. Sorata panics, thinking that what just happened cannot be undone. Sorata reaches his hand out and desperately yells for Miyuki to wait. Sorata is left standing in the rain as Miyuki walks away, realizing that his words cannot be taken back. The rain continues to fall over the majestic Kiyomizu-dera Temple. Miyuki, Mary, and Kishi stand under their umbrellas, looking out at the rain from the temple balcony. Mary complains that Sorata has not arrived yet and wonders if he got lost, while Miyuki and Kishi listen silently. Mary grumbles about having already visited several sites on her own, listing Koyasu Pagoda and Ottawa Falls. Miyuki quietly notes that the rain has its own charm while Mary yawns in exhaustion. Miyuki mentions a famous matchmaking spot nearby where walking from stone to stone with closed eyes makes love blossom, prompting Mary to excitedly suggest they visit it. They arrive at the entrance of Jishu Shrine only to find the stairs blocked off by a barricade. Mary and Kishi stare in disappointment at the sign indicating that the gate to the main shrine is closed. Mary's phone rings, and she thinks it is Sorata calling her, but Miyuki tells her it is actually someone else. Miyuki informs the group that her brother has arrived to pick them up because of the rain, which Mary enthusiastically praises. Miyuki looks down, appearing concerned. Miyuki asks Kishi to contact Sorata for her, which surprises him. Miyuki remains silent and deeply worried. The rain continues to pour heavily from the dark sky. Ayano-kun comments on how disastrous the rainstorm is. Mary spots Sorata as Ayano-kun explains that he picked up Sorata first since he was near Yasaka Shrine, while Kishi tells Sorata not to worry. Mary teases Sorata for being completely drenched and needing to change clothes again, prompting Sorata to apologize while Miyuki watches quietly. While driving, Ayano-kun confirms to Mary that they will be able to attend the Kitano Tenmengu festival tomorrow because the forecast is sunny. Ayano-kun hands a package back to the group. Ayano-kun explains that he prepared a large pile of Tanzaku paper slips for the festival, exciting Mary. Kishi explains the history of Tanzaku slips, while Ayano-kun jokingly comments on how modern people use them to write down selfish desires like wanting money or hitting the jackpot. Mary accuses Ayano-kun of being twisted, unlike Miyuki, while Ayano-kun playfully denies it, and Kishi calls them both horrible. The rain continues to fall over the large traditional house in Kyoto at night. Inside, Mary lies on the floor writing down her wishes on Tanzaku slips, while Miyuki sits nearby. Miyuki remarks on how many slips Mary is writing on, but Mary replies that she simply has too many dreams and asks if Miyuki is going to write more than one, to which Miyuki replies that she only has one. Mary suddenly grabs Miyuki's completed slip and reacts with utter shock after reading what is written on it. Miyuki explains that her wish is a dream from a long time ago that her family and Sorata do not know about, prompting Mary to sweatily agree to keep it a secret. Mary comments on how nice youth is and excitedly asks Miyuki if she has any other dreams she wants to write down. Miyuki looks down and admits that she does not have any other dreams in particular. Mary is shocked to hear that Miyuki has no dream job or even a college she wants to attend, and Miyuki adds that she does not even want to go to college. Mary notes that Miyuki's lack of interest in college is rare for someone from an elite high school, as she always assumed smart people aimed for top universities. Miyuki mentions she has never really discussed her future with anyone before, while Mary tells her that she always assumed Miyuki would go to college since she is so curious. Mary points out that, while Miyuki's personality suits her choice, not going to college seems like a waste. Miyuki stares blankly ahead, pondering the word waste and wondering if that is also what her brother and Sorata think. Miyuki remembers Ayano-kun and Sorata's previous remarks about her school choice narrowing her potential, and how it would be better if she switched schools. Miyuki quietly places her slip on the floor as she recalls Sorata's confession that he still agrees with Ayano-kun. Miyuki hesitatingly confesses to Mary that she and Sorata had their first fight earlier that day. Mary reacts with complete shock. Mary immediately stomps forward, declaring that she will go punish Sorata on Miyuki's behalf, while Miyuki desperately holds her back and explains that she has it completely wrong. Miyuki leans against Mary's shoulder, softly explaining that she actually feels like she understands Sorata's thoughtfulness, especially in this very moment. Miyuki smiles quietly to herself as she contemplates her feelings. Miyuki recalls how miserable she felt when Sorata suggested she return to Kyoto, making her wonder if she was the only one who wanted them to be together. Miyuki admits to Mary that she is frustrated with herself because Sorata has always been so kind and deeply concerned for her, as she looks down at her Tanzaku slip. Miyuki reflects that she still feels like her old self, unable to comprehend things deeply and loathing her own lack of strong attachments. Miyuki acknowledges that both now and in the past, she has remained largely indifferent to her own goals, and others' praise worrying those around her without even realizing it. Miyuki admits that she has only focused on herself and failed to understand the true weight of others' kind and comforting words. Miyuki focuses her eyes with sudden determination. Miyuki declares with a serious expression that she truly wants to understand Sorata's real feelings. Miyuki resolves to uncover Sorata's true thoughts so they can communicate clearly and choose a better path together, though she still harbors some hesitation. Miyuki admits that she is terrified of facing rejection despite wanting to know the truth, while Mary gently grabs Miyuki's hands to comfort her. Miyuki holds her fortune slip, which promises that her honest words will reach him and their future together will shine. Mary hands her Tanzaku slip to Miyuki. Mary explains that she wrote a wish for everyone else's wishes to come true since she has too many dreams of her own. Mary adds that she has too many wishes to write them all down as Miyuki watches her quietly. Miyuki holds Mary's slip close to her chest and sincerely thanks her. Kishi and Sorata walk down the hallway discussing how the shrine was closed for construction and how Mary got her spirits back up by pulling a moderate luck fortune slip after feeling disappointed. Ayano-kun slides the door open and comments on how cheerful they look, while Kishi notes that he is glad Sorata seems to be in better spirits than he was during lunch. Ayano-kun laughs and claims Sorata is just reading too much into the Kyoto dialect, while Kishi realizes that Ayano-kun has indeed been intentionally teasing Sorata with euphemisms since they first met. Ayano-kun praises Kishi's handsome looks and suggests he go back to modeling, leading Kishi to nervously wonder if Ayano-kun is switching his teasing targets to him. Ayano-kun tries to justify his blunt remarks while the others discuss his warped personality and lack of self-awareness. Miyuki sits alone on the porch staring quietly at the Tanzaku slips. Miyuki is startled when a hand reaches out and someone calls her name. Kishi and Sorata approach Miyuki as she sits on the porch. Kishi asks Miyuki what she is doing there since he thought she was upstairs, and Miyuki replies that she is just cooling off. Miyuki glances at Sorata, who looks back at her with a dazed expression. Ayano-kun suddenly pops his head in over Sorata's shoulder and jokingly warns Miyuki that she will catch a cold if she stays out there after taking a shower. Ayano-kun tells Sorata and Kishi that students should be in bed by 10, while Kishi points out that Ayano-kun is also a student, prompting Ayano-kun to tell them to stop bickering and guide Sorata away, as Sorata looks back over his shoulder. Sorata walks away downcast, leaving Miyuki sitting alone on the porch. Miyuki looks up with a look of sudden determination. Sorata continues to walk away with his head lowered. Miyuki reaches out and grabs the hem of Sorata's shirt to stop him from leaving. Miyuki holds Sorata's shirt and hesitatingly asks if they can talk. In a flashback, the group comments on the unexpected rain while Ayano-kun explains he bought umbrellas from a corner store, handing a traditional oil paper umbrella to Miyuki. The group stares blankly at Ayano-kun, completely dumbfounded by his thoughtfulness. The group teases Ayano-kun for acting like a ladies' man, prompting him to tell them to quit teasing him or he will take the umbrella back. Back in the present, Miyuki holds Sorata's shirt and asks if they can talk. Miyuki's aunt suddenly pops in and asks what they are doing. The aunt tells them they need to go to sleep because they are traveling to Arashiyama tomorrow and will have to do a lot of walking, and Sorata nervously agrees. Miyuki asks Sorata if he is sneaking out, which he denies before deciding they should save their conversation for tomorrow. Sorata follows Miyuki down the corridor, wondering what she wanted to talk about. The next day, the group arrives at Tojutsukayo Bridge in Arashiyama. Mary reacts with utter surprise upon arriving at Arashiyama. Mary points out that even the station feels elegant at the kimono forest and eagerly asks what famous spots they should visit, first asking if Miyuki has any recommendations. Miyuki stands silently panicking because she cannot think of any recommendations. Mary points out that they cannot possibly enjoy all the famous sites in a single day, so she declares that she has a proposal. Mary enthusiastically suggests that they split up into groups. Mary hugs Miyuki and proposes that she group up with Miyuki while Sorata partners with Kishi. Mary explains that she wants to do a girls' trip to see everything and buy souvenirs, while Miyuki, Kishi, and Sorata exchange awkward glances. Kishi immediately approves the plan, noting that Mary won't change her mind anyway, while Sorata frantically protests. Mary and Miyuki walk away, leaving Sorata and Kishi behind. Mary tells Miyuki that while making up is important, she wants Miyuki to enjoy the trip, hoping the time apart will help forge a bond between Miyuki and Sorata. Mary lists a packed hardcore itinerary starting with the bamboo forest and a rickshaw ride, leaving Miyuki sweating. Banners rustle in the breeze as the girls begin their walk. Meanwhile, Kishi smiles happily as they begin their own excursion. Sorata admits to Kishi that he has always wanted to visit this place. Sorata comments on how quiet and beautiful it is while Kishi explains that it used to be a ryokan long ago where Yasunari Kawabata wrote his famous novel. Sorata is amazed by the rainbow-colored hallway, and Kishi explains that the building has been converted into a textile gallery. Sorata points out that they can see Katsura River from the round windows, and Kishi agrees. Sorata notes that the reflecting pool looks like a mirror, and Kishi explains that the water is mixed with dyes to give it a deep, indigo appearance. They enter a workshop where an employee turns on a light demonstrating how the dyed fabric changes color to a bright red in the light. Kishi chuckles softly to himself. Sorata says the tour was delightful and notes that coming there together allowed them to take their time wandering around. Sorata and Kishi rest together in a peaceful, quiet moment. Kishi asks Sorata if he has already written his wish on his Tanzaku slip, leaving Sorata hesitant. Kishi admits that he did write his wish but refuses to it, keeping it a secret. Sorata admits he is still struggling to decide what to wish for. Sorata remains deep in thought. In the bamboo forest, Mary excitedly drags Miyuki toward the rickshaws while Kishi and Sorata joke that the girls are speedrunning their sightseeing spots. Both Miyuki and Sorata smile softly as they enjoy their respective tours. Kishi observes Sorata as they walk together and comments that Sorata really does love Miyuki. Sorata smiles and openly admits that he does love her. Kishi watches Sorata quietly, catching himself wondering about Sorata's persistence. Kishi reflects on what he would do if he had someone he had loved since childhood. Kishi considers how intimidating it would be to realize that the person he loved came from a completely different world. Kishi admits to himself that he probably would have given up to avoid getting hurt, letting his feelings fade into just another memory. Kishi admires how Sorata never gives up and works earnestly to confidently stand by Miyuki's side, even though his innocent heart has likely been hurt many times along the way. Kishi reflects on the pain that can come from falling in love. Sorata tells Kishi that he suggested Miyuki transfer to another school the day before. Sorata explains that if transferring makes Miyuki happy, then he believes it is for the best, leaving Kishi completely stunned. Sorata reflects on how Miyuki's gentle smile in the rain felt like her old fake smile, which ultimately ended up hurting her. Sorata admits he panicked after realizing what he said and has no idea what the right thing to do was. Kishi asks Sorata what he truly wants to do. Kishi asks if Sorata is fine with not being able to see Miyuki as freely if she transfers, and Sorata admits he is not, but feels there is nothing he can do. Kishi reassures Sorata that his mindset is not wrong at all, calling him incredibly sincere. Kishi suggests to Sorata that it would be fine if he were a little more selfish. Kishi tells Sorata that whether he is trying to be considerate or simply does not want to be apart, Miyuki would likely want to hear his true feelings. Kishi adds that he does not think Miyuki would get angry or hate hearing Sorata's honest selfishness. Kishi encourages Sorata not to fear being hated and to have more faith in himself. Kishi admits to himself that he doesn't know the full details of how much Sorata has struggled or been hurt in the past. Kishi notes that despite not knowing everything, he does know how much Sorata and Miyuki value each other. Kishi continues to speak up in a flustered tone. Kishi looks down, blushing, and earnestly tells Sorata that he respects him from the bottom of his heart. Sorata looks at Kishi in complete shock. Kishi asks Sorata once more what he truly wants to do. Sorata opens his mouth to speak but hesitates. Sorata looks out the window, completely silent. Sorata suddenly runs down the hallway and slams the door behind him, thanking Kishi and shouting that he finally knows what he must do. Sorata yells that he is heading home first on the train, leaving Kishi sweating and asking how he is going to get back. Sorata runs off in a hurry. Sorata smiles broadly and calls Kishi by his first name, thanking him once more. Kishi turns bright red in shock. Kishi flusteredly walks away as Sorata waves goodbye. Meanwhile, a crowd gathers at the beautifully lit Kitano Tenmengu Shrine Festival at night. Tanzaku wish slips hang quietly from the bamboo branches. Miyuki stands near a food stall holding her excellent fortune slip. Miyuki looks at her slip with a quiet, serious expression.